Chapter 1655. 3 minutes. The sapling was extremely nervous. The tree branch inside the crystal coffin was too important to him. The tree branch inside the crystal coffin was too important to him. As long as he could devour it, he would be able to transform. After that, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. It was so much so that there was a high possibility that he could raise his cultivation to the heavenly sovereign realm. 3 minutes. Ningyu's expression was extremely solemn. 3 minutes might seem like a long time, but it was actually very short. At the very least, it was far from enough for Zhao Lin to set up the array formation. In the entire hall, the ones with the lowest cultivation were Ningyu and Zhao Lin. Ningyu was no idiot. After the crystal coffin was opened, there would definitely be a huge battle in the hall. When that time came, he would have to rely on himself. After all, to survive the battle of so many Sky Supremes was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Oh right. Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something. He quickly sank his consciousness into the ring and said to the sapling, "Give me the golden key, I want to open the crystal coffin." What? Ningyu's words shocked the sapling. The golden key was used to open the crystal coffin. But in the sapling's eyes, there was no point in opening the crystal coffin now. The crystal coffin was the source of the chaotic battle. Once it was opened, all the martial artists in the hall would turn their attention to it. Therefore, the sapling didn't want to open the crystal coffin now. "Cut the crap, hurry up and give me the golden key," Ningyu scolded with an impatient expression. "Okay." Seeing Ningyu's determination, the sapling gritted its teeth and threw the golden key to Ningyu. Pa. Catching the golden key, Ningyu first injected his soul power into it, then immediately ordered the 5 stone beetles to return. Whoosh. Fortunately, the 5 stone beetles weren't very fast. Otherwise, they would have been in front of the crystal coffin by now. "Stone beetle leader, your task is to find a way to insert this key." Ningyu held the golden key in his hand and carefully handed it to the stone beetle leader, then instructed. Rumble. However, before Ningyu could place the golden key on the back of the stone beetle leader, the battle in the hall suddenly ended. Di Feng, Tang Mo, and Tang Jiyu retreated to the crystal coffin. Their eyes were burning with passion as they stared at the golden key in Ningyu's hand. However, Di Feng's expression was obviously different from Tang Mo and Tang Jiyu. Tang Mo and Tang Jiyu were filled with excitement. As for Di Feng, there was a tinge of worry under his excited expression. Although Di Feng concealed his concern well, Ningyu noticed it. "Is the golden key unable to open the crystal coffin?" Ningyu was wary of Di Feng's expression. One had to be extremely careful when dealing with an old fox like Di Feng. Because the slightest bit of carelessness would cause one to fall into his trap. Swish 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 swish. Jiao Zhengde, Hu Wentian, Zhon Yi, and Zhon Ming retreated to Ningyu's side. Just like Di Feng and the rest, Jiao Zhengde and the rest fixed their eyes on the golden key in Ningyu's hand. Sho. Hu Wentian moved closer to Ningyu and said in a low voice, "Di Shitian mentioned the golden key to me in the past." It seemed that the golden key was extremely important to them. Although Hu Wentian had mentioned this to Ningyu previously, he felt that he should still remind Ningyu. Hu Wentian was a little worried that Ningyu would return the golden key to Di Feng. The key could be given to anyone but Di Feng. Whoosh. In the main hall, when one person moved, everyone else moved. The 100-armed ghost demon, the short and fat old man and the 3-peak heaven supreme demonic beasts flew over with burning gazes. They wanted a piece of the pie. Although everyone wanted a piece of the pie, no one said anything. No one asked for the golden key from Ningyu. Drip. Drip. Time passed second by second. In the blink of an eye, a minute had passed. Ningyu's face became more and more solemn. He could tell that everyone was determined to get the golden key. If they didn't use the key, the crystal coffin would open automatically in 2 minutes. If they used the golden key, it was still unknown if the crystal coffin could be opened. Cough cough. The silence didn't last long. After a minute and a half, it was broken by a dry cough. Everyone looked over and saw that the person who coughed was Di Feng. At this moment, Di Feng's aura was restrained and he looked harmless. After the dry cough, Di Feng said, "Since Ningyu has the golden key, I think we should let him throw it over and I will open the crystal coffin." T. Why should you open the crystal coffin? Who do you think you are? I only have 10 years left to live. I should be the one to open the crystal coffin. You only have 10 years left to live. What does that have to do with us? I'm the most talented. I should be the one to open the crystal coffin. Everyone argued and argued. No one wanted to give up. After all, whoever opened the crystal coffin first would be the first to get the magical treasures and elixirs. No one would give up such a great opportunity. Can everyone listen to me? Seeing that time was running out, Ningyu had no choice but to stand up and say, "The golden key is with me. Should I open the crystal coffin?" As he spoke, Ningyu's gaze fell on Jiao Zhengde and Hu Wentian. It was obvious. Ningyu was asking for Jiao Zhengde and the rest's approval. "I have no objections." Hu Wentian and Ningyu were on the same side. He naturally wouldn't refute Ningyu. "I have no objections either." After that, Jiao Zhengde, Zhon Yi and Zhon Ming nodded their heads, expressing their agreement with Ningyu's decision. Seeing that Jiao Zhengde and the rest were on the same side, Ningyu shifted his gaze to the 100-armed ghost demon, the robust man and the rest. The 100-armed ghost demon, the robust man and the rest snorted at the same time and turned their heads away. It was obvious that they agreed with Ningyu's decision. To the 100-armed ghost demon and the rest, letting Ningyu open the crystal coffin might be the best outcome. After all, Ningyu was only a first-grade Earth Supreme. Even if Ningyu could snatch the magical treasures and elixirs, he wouldn't be able to escape from them. Di Feng, do you have any objections? In the end, Ningyu waved the golden key in his hand and looked at Di Feng and the rest. "The golden key is in my hand and my cultivation is only a first-grade Earth Supreme. You don't have any objections to me opening the crystal coffin, right? If you have any objections, then I can't help but suspect your intentions." "I naturally have no objections, but I have a condition." Since everyone agreed to let Ningyu open the crystal coffin, Di Feng had no reason to reject. Chapter 1656. Chapter 1656, Opening the Crystal Coffin, that's for sure. "When I open the crystal coffin, all of you can follow behind me." How would Ningyu not know what Di Feng was thinking? However, Ningyu knew his limits. He stopped halfway through his sentence and looked at Imperial Peak without blinking. He extended 3 fingers and said faintly, 3 meters. "Have you lost your mind?" Di Feng looked at Ningyu as though he was looking at an idiot and said coldly, "The lowest condition I can accept is 1 meter. I can only stay 1 meter away from you." Ningyu did not reply to Di Feng's roar. He shrugged his shoulders and closed his eyes to rest. Although there was still a minute before the crystal coffin would open, Ningyu did not compromise. With a distance of 3 meters, Ningyu was confident that he could snatch the world's tree branch from the crystal coffin. Then, he would activate the mini-world that he had gotten from 100-armed devil to avoid the siege of Di Feng and the others. If not, he could enter the pagoda of Yuzuan and rely on it to block their attacks. However, Ningyu did not want to use the pagoda of Yuzuan unless it was absolutely necessary. Firstly, he did not know if the pagoda of Yuzuan could withstand the joint attack of pinnacle heavenly sovereigns. Secondly, he had no way of contacting the mysterious expert in the pagoda of Yuzuan. With these 2 concerns, Ningyu had to be extremely careful. 3 meters it is. We have no objections. Before Di Feng could reply to Ningyu, Tang Mo and Tang Jiyu, who were beside him, spoke in unison. To Tang Mo and Tang Jiyu, there was no difference between 3 meters and 1 meter. In fact, 3 meters was more advantageous to them. After all, there were many heavenly sovereigns. If they were only 1 meter away from Ningyu, they would definitely be attacked by the other experts. 3 meters was just nice for a buffer. "You guys." Di Feng's face turned green when he heard Tang Mo and Tang Jiyu agreeing to Ningyu. "All right, I agree as well." Di Feng clenched his teeth and said coldly. Even the only 2 allies had reached an agreement with Ningyu. Di Feng knew that if he continued to be stubborn, he would become a public enemy. 3 meters, so be it. He had a trump card anyway. He could snatch the key before Ningyu inserted it into the hole. Imperial Peak was the biggest thorn. Since even he had agreed, the others naturally had no objections. I have another condition. Ningyu didn't take the golden key to the crystal coffin. Instead, he pointed at Zhao Lin and the 5 stone beetles and said, I'm going to take them with me. How troublesome. Di Feng glared at Ningyu and bellowed, you're a piece of trash and you brought a few other pieces of trash along. You're extremely stupid. Hehe, whether I'm stupid or not, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, right? The corners of Ningyu's mouth curled up into a smile. He then grabbed Zhao Lin's right arm and dashed towards the crystal coffin. Swoosh. Behind Ningyu, the 5 stone beetles flapped their wings and followed closely behind Ningyu. Swoosh. As for Jiao Zhengde and the rest, they didn't dare to be slow. They followed closely behind Ningyu. Ningyu's speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he brought Zhao Lin to the crystal coffin. The 5 stone beetles lined up on both sides of Ningyu. 3 meters away from Ningyu, Jiao Zhengde's group, Emperor Feng's group, 100-armed Devil's group stood on the spot. They controlled the distance very well. 3 meters meant 3 meters. They didn't cross the line at all. Behind Jiao Zhengde and the rest, the warriors whose cultivation was lower than Peak Sky Supreme looked nervous as they stared at the crystal coffin. Since they came to the main hall, it meant that everyone wanted to get the elixir pills in the crystal coffin. Although their cultivation hadn't reached Peak Sky Supreme, they had many trump cards. Everyone was confident that they would be able to snatch 1 or 2 magic treasures and elixirs. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and open the crystal coffin. What surprised Ningyu was that Di Feng couldn't wait any longer and shouted at him. From what Ningyu saw, Di Feng's actions indicated that he didn't want him to open the crystal coffin. However, Di Feng's actions were very different from what he had done earlier. There must be something fishy when something was out of the ordinary. Ningyu became cautious. For a Peak Sky Supreme like Di Feng, there was no need for him to care about 2 different expressions. There were only 2 possibilities for such a situation. First, Di Feng did it on purpose to disrupt Ningyu's mentality. Second, Di Feng was in a hurry to get the golden key. He has murderous intent. Suddenly, the sapling's words rang in Ningyu's head. Murderous intent. Hearing what the sapling said, Ningyu was stunned. Then, he extended his perception and looked at Di Feng. Ningyu was shocked by what he saw. Even though Di Feng hid it well, the murderous intent that he gave off was noticed by Ningyu's sharp perception. Why does he want to kill me? Could it be that he doesn't want me to open the crystal coffin? Ningyu was in a dilemma. On one hand, if he opened the crystal coffin, he might be attacked by Di Feng's fatal attack. On the other hand, if he didn't open the crystal coffin, it would open by itself. After all, there were only 10 seconds left from the 3-minute period that the sapling had predicted. 10 seconds didn't allow Ningyu to think too much. Let's risk it. Ningyu clenched his teeth. He extended his right hand and threw the golden key into the hole on the crystal coffin. As he was worried that Di Feng would create trouble, Ningyu quickly ordered the sapling to open the mini-dimension when he threw the golden key. He wanted to use the mini-dimension to defend against Di Feng's sudden attack. Swoosh. As expected, there was a slight movement in the void next to Di Feng as soon as the mini-world was opened. There was a cold gleam that dashed towards Ningyu from the void. Fut. However, Di Feng had miscalculated this time. When the cold gleam hit the mini-dimension, he spat a mouthful of blood and revealed his original form. Snowtail rat. Jiao Zhengde and the rest were shocked to see the snow-white rat that was the size of a fist on the ground. The so-called snow-tailed rat was an extremely vicious rat species. The scariest part of the snow-tail rat was that it could control a warrior without making a sound. The technique that the snow-tail rat used to control the warrior was to drill into the warrior's brain and swallow the warrior's brain juice and memory at the same time. Hence, the snow-tail rat had another name, which was brain-eating rat. Crack. Everyone's attention didn't stay on the brain-eating rat for long before they were attracted by the cracking sound that came from the crystal coffin. Sh**t. There was no doubt that the cracking sound was caused by the friction between the golden key and the crystal coffin. The situation made Di Feng's face change. At this moment, Di Feng couldn't care less. He immediately shouted, "Stop! You can't open the crystal coffin, creak!" However, Di Feng's shout was obviously slower by half a beat. Chapter 1657. Chapter 1657. Complete silence. Whoosh. The entire hall was in an uproar after the crystal coffin was opened. Di Feng and Jiao Zhengde, who were the closest to Ningyu, stepped on the ground and dashed towards the crystal coffin. At this moment, the alliance and cooperation had been thrown to the back of everyone's mind. Whoever reached the crystal coffin first would occupy the most advantageous position and obtain the most Dharma treasures and elixir pills. No one would give up in the face of absolute benefits. Conflicts were unavoidable as they dashed forward. A late-stage Sky Supreme cultivator reached out his demonic claws towards an early-stage Sky Supreme cultivator next to him. His fist brought with it a violent Yuan Qi gale as it landed on the early-stage Sky Supreme's head. Bang! In a split second. The early-stage Sky Supreme's head exploded like a watermelon. Brain juice splattered all over the ground. Humph! Get out of my way or you'll die. The late-stage Sky Supreme snorted coldly after succeeding in his attack. Whoosh! The surrounding martial artists chose to dodge when they heard the late-stage Sky Supreme's words. Jiao Zhengde and Di Feng's peak Sky Supreme were at the front. Hence, the late-stage Sky Supreme was the absolute overlord at the back. That's more like it. The late-stage Sky Supreme raised his eyebrows when he saw the crowd's reaction. A sinister smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Oh no! However, in the next moment, the late-stage Sky Supreme was just about to move out when he saw a piercing cold light coming towards him. He didn't have time to think and quickly retreated, trying to avoid the cold light. Poochie. Unfortunately, the power of the cold light was so great that a late-stage Sky Supreme couldn't even put up a fight before he was killed. Swoosh! 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 After the late-stage Sky Supreme died, several more beams of cold light shot out from the front and attacked the other cultivators. It was obvious that the martial artist's intention was simple. He wanted to kill all the remaining martial artists. Ah, I'm a genius. I want Dharma treasures and elixir pills. I want to cultivate to the sage realm. What right do you have to kill me? Genius my ass. You're already so old, but your cultivation is only at the initial phase heavenly sovereign realm, and you dare to call yourself a genius. I'm the true genius, reaching the heavenly supreme realm at the age of 100. You should let me go. Humph. What a bunch of idiots. Haven't you noticed? The few of them want to exterminate all of us. A middle-aged man in grey clothes coldly said, right now, we can only join forces to confront those pinnacle heavenly sovereigns. Only then will we have a chance of survival. Everyone has a life-saving trump card. If you don't want to die, use your trump card immediately. The grey-robed middle-aged man's words moved the hearts of the surrounding Sky Supremes. However, he was merely moved. These martial artists would rather see the martial artists next to them get killed than use their trump cards. Humanity was revealed at this moment. What an idiot. The grey-robed middle-aged man saw everyone's reaction. Cursing in his heart, the middle-aged man in grey took out a scroll from his bosom and tore it apart. Whoosh! In an instant, a dazzling light appeared, and the grey-robed middle-aged man disappeared. Let's do it together. The departure of the grey-robed middle-aged man didn't change Jiao Zhengde's decision. Along with Jiao Zhengde's roar, the pinnacle heavenly sovereigns in the main hall moved in unison. Puff, 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 puff. The power of a pinnacle heavenly sovereign was formidable. In just a minute, there were many corpses lying around in the main hall. Without a doubt. Aside from Jiao Zhengde's group, all the pinnacle heavenly sovereigns had died tragically in the main hall. Of course, as a pinnacle heavenly sovereign, Hu Wentian had no problem protecting 10 initial heavenly supreme nine-tailed demon foxes. After all, Jiao Zhengde, Di Feng, and the 100-armed ghost demon didn't want to face Hu Wentian head-on. Di Feng, if I find out that you're lying to me, You should know the consequences. Jiao Zhengde looked at Di Feng and said coldly, "Tell me, what magical treasures and elixirs are in the crystal coffins? How many of them are there? Why would I lie to you?" Hearing Jiao Zhengde's cold words, Di Feng smiled and said, "No matter how powerful I am, I can't fight against all of you." Originally, when Ningyu opened the crystal coffins, Jiao Zhengde and the rest dashed out in an attempt to occupy an advantageous position. However, before Jiao Zhengde and the rest could run far, Di Feng stopped them and told them to settle the trouble in the main hall first. As Di Feng's suggestion was pertinent, it was what Jiao Zhengde and the rest wanted. Hence, Jiao Zhengde and the 100-armed ghost demon stopped at the same time and chose to attack the rest of the warriors in the main hall. Now that the warriors in the main hall had been killed, Jiao Zhengde naturally had to ask Di Feng what was in the crystal coffins. "Cut the crap. Tell me." The 100-armed ghost demon's eyes were cold as he took a step forward and berated. The 100-armed devil's action made Di Feng's eyes flash with an unnatural coldness. Luckily, Di Feng hid it well. Otherwise, the 100-armed ghost demon might fight him with his life. In the crystal coffins, there's a total of 10 bottles of grade 9 elixirs, 8 bottles of grade 10 elixirs, monarch treasures, pure energy. Di Feng took a deep breath and started to brag. He kept bragging about what was in the crystal coffin. In Di Feng's mind, every second that he could drag on was a second. As long as he could drag on for half an hour, he could show his trump card and be fearless. Initially, when Ningyu opened the crystal coffins, Di Feng's heart was in his throat as he was afraid that something would happen to the warriors in the crystal coffins. Luckily, nothing had happened. Otherwise, Di Feng would have stopped Jiao Zhengde and the rest from getting close to the crystal coffins. There are so many things in the crystal coffins. As expected, Jiao Zhengde and the rest looked excited when they heard the names of the elixirs and treasures that Di Feng mentioned. Although Jiao Zhengde and the rest believed Di Feng 70% and 30%. However, none of them took the initiative to attack but chose to ask. How could it be fake? Di Feng spread his hands and said, "Plus, there's no need for me to," swoosh. Before Di Feng could finish his sentence, there was a terrifying suction force that shot out from the crystal coffins. The suction force was terrifying. It was extremely terrifying. Ningyu, Zhao Lin and the rest who were closest to the crystal coffins were obviously affected. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, in the next moment, Ningyu, Zhao Lin and the 5 stone beetles couldn't withstand the terrifying suction force. They were sucked into the crystal coffins right in front of Di Feng and the rest. Clang. The sound of the coffin lid hitting the coffin could be heard. In an instant, the entire main hall became quiet. Chapter 1658. Chapter 1658. And Qianhao, what the F***ck is going on? The silence didn't last long before it was broken by Emperor Feng's roar. Swoosh. Then, Emperor Feng plunged and came to the crystal coffin in an instant. He unleashed his powerful perception and wanted to check the situation in the crystal coffin. It was a pity. No matter how Emperor Feng tried to check, his perception couldn't enter the crystal coffin. Swoosh. The next moment, Jiao Zhengde and the 100-armed ghost demon flashed and came to the crystal coffin. Jiao Zhengde and the rest followed Emperor Feng's action and unleashed their powerful perception to check the crystal coffin. The outcome was the same. Emperor Feng couldn't check the situation in the crystal coffin and Jiao Zhengde and the rest couldn't either. "I need an explanation." Jiao Zhengde looked at Emperor Feng coldly and said, "You didn't let us go over. It seems like you and Ningyu are having an affair. Now that you've mentioned it, I think it's possible." The 100-armed ghost demon nodded and said coldly. Then, the 3 beasts, the short and fat old man, Zhong Yi, Zhong Ming, and even Tang Mo and Tang Jiu agreed with Jiao Zhengde. Until then, everyone had the same thought. No matter what, they had to get rid of Emperor Feng. Retreat first. Emperor Feng knew that. He immediately plunged and wanted to leave before he was surrounded. Swoosh. 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 However, before Emperor Feng could run far, he was surrounded by Jiao Zhengde and the rest. Die. This time, Jiao Zhengde and the rest didn't talk nonsense with Emperor Feng. "All of you are crazy." Emperor Feng let out a hysterical roar. Even if Di Feng was powerful, he could still feel death approaching when surrounded by so many pinnacle heavenly sovereigns. I have to think of a way to leave. Emperor Feng rolled his eyes. He was using words to disrupt Jiao Zhengde and the rest's judgment while thinking of a way to escape. Emperor Feng had a trump card. Plus, Emperor Feng had absolute confidence that he could leave after showing his trump card. However, the price of showing his trump card was too high. It was so high that Emperor Feng didn't want to show it. Once he did, Emperor Feng could forget about leveling up to Sage Realm for the rest of his life. The price. It wasn't small. Rumble. Because Jiao Zhengde and the rest had ulterior motives, they did not use their killer moves. Imperial Peak lasted for a long time under their joint attack. There are still 10 minutes left before the half an hour. As time went by, Di Feng almost gave up on the idea of using his trump card. As long as they could hold on for another 10 minutes, Imperial Peak could activate the last taboo formation. Once the taboo formation was activated, the entire hall, and even the entire area where the Saint-grade crystal vein was located, would become hell on earth. 10 minutes. I have to hold on no matter what. Emperor Feng performed tenaciously under the siege of the crowd. Although there were injuries on his body, they weren't serious to Di Feng. He could still take it. Gulp. Outside the crystal coffin, Di Feng was enduring Jiao Zhengde and the rest's attacks alone. Inside the crystal coffin, Ningyu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His expression was as if he had seen a ghost. From the outside, the crystal coffin looked very small. However, after entering, Ningyu found out how big the crystal coffin was. However, Ningyu had no intention to find out how big the crystal coffin was. His attention was completely attracted by the two warriors on his left and right. The warrior on Ningyu's left looked similar to Emperor Feng. However, if one were to look at his right arm, it would be empty. There was nothing there. It was obvious that the warrior on the left of Ningyu was a one-armed man. He only had his left arm. The warrior on the right of Ningyu gave off a familiar aura. Ningyu had noticed the aura from Hundred-Armed Devil and the short and fat old man. The one on the right should be an expert in Demon Spirit Realm. The one-armed man on the left should be from Emperor Palace. Ningyu looked solemn. Regardless if it was an expert in Demon Spirit Realm or the one-armed man from Emperor Palace, he couldn't afford to offend them. Although the one-armed man only had one arm, his power was abnormally terrifying. A half-sage. The one-armed man's strength had reached the terrifying half-saint realm. Even Ningyu hadn't reached the half-saint realm in his previous life. The Demon Spirit Realm expert confronting the one-armed man was also a half-saint realm expert. If others knew that a half-saint from Emperor Palace and a half-saint from Demon Spirit Realm were confronting each other in the crystal coffin, they would definitely be shocked. Especially if Jiao Zhengde and the rest knew about it, they would probably be speechless from the shock. What magical treasures and elixirs? Those were just Di Feng's excuses. Aside from the Demon Spirit Realm expert and the one-armed man, there were no other magical treasures or elixirs in the crystal coffin. And Qianhao, you'd better surrender. Being refined by me is a blessing that you've cultivated in your previous life. Ningyu's appearance did not affect the confrontation between the one-armed man and the rest. A brief moment later, the one-armed man coldly said, in the crystal coffin, your strength has been suppressed to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign Realm, whereas mine has been suppressed to the pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. Aside from surrendering, what other choice do you have? I'm the war god of the An clan. Even if my cultivation has been suppressed to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign Realm, it's still easy for me to kill you. The Demon Spirit Realm expert called An Qianhao coldly said. Ha ha ha. The one-armed man raised his head and laughed. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. A 5th grade Earth Sovereign challenging a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. I have to say that you're courageous. Their strength has been suppressed to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign Realm and pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. The conversation between An Qianhao and the one-armed man fell into Ningyu's ears. This discovery shocked Ningyu. One must know that Ningyu had already investigated that An Qianhao and the one-armed man were both half-saint realm experts, and they could even unleash the pressure of a half-saint realm. Who would have thought that their strength would be suppressed to such a miserable extent just by emitting their pressure? How about this, and Qianhao? I'll make a deal with you. The corner of the one-armed man's mouth rose as he coldly said, as long as you hand over the branch of the world tree to me, I'll immediately order the experts of the Divine Emperor Palace outside to open the crystal coffin and release you. You want the branch of the world tree? And Qianhao waved his right hand and took out a palm-sized emerald green branch from his bosom. Taking a closer look, there were still a few roots at the base of the branch. It was very obvious that the world tree branch that Qianhao had taken out already had a trace of vitality. Ningyu, hurry up and help me get that branch. As long as I devour it, I'll be able to reach the heavenly sovereign realm very quickly. The branch of the world tree appeared, and the sapling was undoubtedly roaring at Ningyu from within his storage ring. Chapter 1659. A transfer station. RUF** king kidding me? Ningyu nearly cursed when he heard the sapling's words. How was it any different from courting death to snatch the tree branch in front of Qianhao and the one-armed man? Qianhao and the one-armed man were both half-saint realm experts. Although their cultivation had dropped to 5th and 9th grade Earth sovereigns due to some sort of suppression, they were still terrifyingly powerful. According to Ningyu's preliminary judgment, Qianhao's current fighting strength was comparable to an initial heavenly sovereign expert. As for the one-armed man, his fighting strength should be equivalent to a middle heavenly sovereign expert since his cultivation had dropped to 9th grade Earth sovereign. Trying to snatch the world tree trunk at this time was no different from looking for a lantern in a latrine pit. Then let's wait. The sapling suppressed its restlessness and said, I'll find a way to communicate with the tree branch and try to fuse with it without bloodshed. After saying that, the sapling fell silent, ignoring Ningyu's astonished expression. Standing between Qianhao and the one-armed man, Ningyu's mouth was slightly agape with a dumbfounded expression. Communicating with the tree branch in Qianhao's hand? What the hell was going on? Did the sapling think that as long as it communicated with the world tree branch, the world tree branch would come to its side for no reason? Ha ha ha. While Ningyu was dumbfounded, the one-armed man first stared at the tree branch in Qianhao's hand before he threw his head back and laughed. The world tree is a towering tree that has existed since ancient times. It's said that you can reach a higher realm by climbing it. Who doesn't want it? Fine, I'll give you this chance. Qianhao grabbed the tree branch with his right hand and threw it towards the one-armed man. Swish. The tree branch was so fast that it arrived before Ningyu in the blink of an eye. What happened next left Ningyu dumbfounded once again. The world tree branch actually stopped in front of him and didn't continue forward. Qianhao, what is the meaning of this? Seeing that the world tree branch had stopped, one-armed man said coldly, the world tree branch doesn't belong to you. You should know that. Although the world tree stopped in front of Ningyu, one-armed man still didn't dare to snatch it. The one-armed man knew very well that Qianhao had a trump card that he was extremely wary of. Therefore, the one-armed man wouldn't shed all pretenses of cordiality with Qianhao without absolute certainty. He wanted to slowly exhaust Qianhao to death. Don't tell me you still don't understand what I mean. Qianhao shrugged and said, I can give you the world tree branch, but I want something from you. What are you? The one-armed man took a step forward and said coldly, reversal pill. Qianhao spoke in a low voice. Hiss. Hearing the words reversal pill, Ningyu could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. In his previous life, Ningyu was a peak 9th grade alchemist whose soul force had reached the realm of breaking through the Pill Emperor realm. He was only one step away from becoming an alchemy sovereign. Once he became an alchemy sovereign, Ningyu would be able to refine 10th grade elixirs. Although there was only a difference of 1 grade between a 10th grade and a 9th grade elixir, the gap was as wide as the heavens. In order to improve the quality of the sovereign immortal pill, the Beast King had spent dozens of years and a torrential amount of energy to succeed. This was enough to show how precious a 10th grade elixir was. The reversal pill was a 10th grade elixir. Moreover, the effect of the reversal pill was no different from the detoxification pill. It could dissolve the poison in a cultivator's body. It could be said that if Ningyu had the reversal pill, the poison in Xie Guoliang, and the others' bodies would be instantly dissolved. Ha ha ha. When he heard that Chen wanted the heaven-returning pill on him, the one-armed man once again raised his head and let out a wild laugh. He immediately took out a jade bottle from his bosom and sinisterly said, "The heaven-returning pill is a tier 10 medicinal pill. It can cure the injuries on your body. If you swallow the heaven-returning pill, the suppression within the crystal coffin will be the same as mine. At that time, your cultivation will also rise to the pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign realm. How can I fight with you then?" The one-armed man was well aware of the gap between him and Chen. So in his heart, he would never hand the reversal pill to Chen. "Since you don't want to trade, then forget it." Chen shrugged as he stretched his right hand out. A suction force shot out as he tried to suck the branch before Ningyu back. "Wait." Seeing Chenhao's actions, the one-armed man's heart trembled as he immediately said, "You can't catch the wolf without risking the child. I'll make this trade with you." As he spoke, the one-armed man swung his left hand and threw the jade bottle towards Ningyu. Rustle. The jade bottle drew an arc in midair and landed in front of Ningyu along with the branch of the world tree. Looking at the branch and jade bottle before him, Ningyu was dumbfounded once again. Wasn't this happiness a little too sudden? Ningyu shook his head to make sure that he wasn't dreaming. The branch of the world tree and the reversal pill. These two items were things that Ningyu yearned for even in his dreams. "Brat, let me give you a piece of advice. Some things aren't something that someone with a low cultivation like you can obtain." Seeming to have seen through Ningyu's thoughts, Chenhao glanced at Zhao Lin and the 5 stone beetles at the side, and then he looked at Ningyu and said indifferently, "Don't lose your life because of a moment of impulse. Don't lose your life because of a moment of rashness." Chenhao's advice had startled Ningyu in his heart. No wonder Chenhao and the one-armed man would give him the world tree branch and the reversal pill. It turned out that they had something on him. The 5 stone beetles and Zhao Lin. It was precisely because of this that Chenhao and the one-armed man would unscrupulously use Ningyu as a link in the transaction. If Ningyu's guess was correct, the world tree branch and the reversal pill must contain trump cards left behind by Chenhao and the one-armed man. If he dared to embezzle these 2 items, he would surely suffer. "It's done." Chenhao and the one-armed man were still discussing the details of the transaction when the sapling's joyful voice suddenly rang in Ningyu's mind. "What's done?" Ningyu was shocked, but he didn't show any reaction on his face. In front of Chenhao and the one-armed man, Ningyu didn't dare to show any excitement. "I've reached an agreement with the branch of the world tree. I can fuse with it." The sapling went straight to the point and said to Ningyu, "Keep watch for me later. I'll think of a way to fuse with the branch." "Are you sure you're not joking?" Ningyu was surprised. Snatching the branch of the world tree in front of Chenhao and the one-armed man, "Have you lost your mind? What do you mean? I've already reached an agreement with the branch. I'll devour its essence. As for its bark, I'm not interested. If the sapling had a body, it would probably roll its eyes on the spot." Chapter 1660. Chapter 1660. Transformation. My God, is this possible? Ningyu almost roared out loud. It only swallowed the essence of the world tree trunk and left the bark behind. If this was possible, didn't it mean that they could obtain the world tree trunk under Chenhao's nose? Of course it's possible. After saying this, the sapling didn't waste any more words with Ningyu. Instead, it moved its branches back and forth in the storage ring. Buzz. As the sapling's body moved, the world tree trunk in front of Ningyu actually trembled slightly. Fortunately, this trembling only lasted for 0.1 seconds. Otherwise, it would definitely arouse Chenhao's suspicion. Swoosh. After 0.1 seconds of shaking, a cold light suddenly shot out from the trunk of the world tree. The cold light was so fast that Ningyu didn't even have time to react before it entered the storage ring. "Give me a few minutes." As soon as the cold light entered the storage ring, the sapling's voice rang out. Then, the sapling fell completely silent. Gulp. It wasn't until the sapling's voice faded away that Ningyu came to his senses. According to the sapling, the essence of the world tree trunk had turned into a cold light and entered the storage ring. At this time, the world tree trunk was only left with its skin. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Ningyu tried to make himself look more normal. At this moment, he couldn't show any nervousness. Otherwise, with Qianhao's sly sense of smell, he would definitely find some clues. Although he didn't know how many minutes the sapling would need, Ningyu knew that he couldn't arouse Qianhao's suspicions in this period of time. Thinking of this, Ningyu withdrew his thoughts and focused all his attention on Qianhao. As for the one-armed man, Ningyu believed that even if he let him examine the world tree trunk, he absolutely wouldn't be able to discover anything wrong. Qianhao's behavior slightly alleviated the worry in Ningyu's heart. Qianhao didn't immediately pay attention to the world tree trunk. Even now, he was still wrangling with the one-armed man and negotiating terms. Qianhao and the one-armed man both wanted the world tree branch and the reversal pill. Since they both wanted each other's things and didn't want to lose their own things, this situation was created. Drag it out a little longer. When the sapling completely devours the tree branch of the world and completes its transformation, it will be the time of your death. As Qianhao and the one-armed man bickered with each other, Ningyu's worries were greatly alleviated. What Ningyu needed to do now was only one word. Wait. Once the sapling completed its transformation, neither Qianhao nor the one-armed man would be able to benefit from it. What should we do? On the other side, Zhao Lin revealed a worried expression when she saw Ningyu standing between Qianhao and the one-armed man. Zhao Lin was not only worried about Ningyu's safety, but she was even more worried about her own safety. In this area, Zhao Lin discovered a hidden array formation. The array formation was extremely terrifying. With Zhao Lin's attainments in array formations, she could basically tell that once the array formation was activated, even a Sky Supreme expert would be instantly killed. Zhao Lin's gaze slowly swept across Qianhao and the one-armed man's faces. She wanted to determine who was the one who set up the array formation. Unfortunately, Qianhao and the one-armed man were both half-saint experts. With Zhao Lin's life experience, she was far from being able to distinguish between them. I have to think of a way. Zhao Lin's eyes turned. Suddenly, she noticed the 5 stone beetles at the side. Every single one of them was at the pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign realm. Let's take a gamble. Zhao Lin clenched her teeth and decided to take a gamble. With the help of the 5 stone beetles, Zhao Lin was confident that she could break the array formation. Regardless of whether the stone beetles could understand her words, Zhao Lin directly told the 5 stone beetles how to break the array formation. As for herself, she didn't do anything. She just stayed where she was. Zhao Lin knew very well that Qianhao and the one-armed man were treating her as a hostage. The stone beetles could move, but she couldn't. Drip, drip. Time passed slowly. This area looked peaceful on the surface, but in fact, undercurrents were surging in the dark. Qianhao and the one-armed man were testing each other, while Zhao Lin was thinking of a way to break the array formation. Ningyu, on the other hand, was waiting for the sapling to transform. I wonder how long it will take. At this time, Ningyu's heart was extremely worried. It had been more than 10 minutes since the sapling merged with the world branch. Previously, the sapling had said that it would only take a few minutes to merge with the world branch. Now that more than 10 minutes had passed, how could Ningyu not be worried when the sapling had yet to merge with the world branch? Ningyu. Just when Ningyu was worried that the sapling had yet to transform, the sapling's voice suddenly sounded in Ningyu's mind. Hearing this, Ningyu's heart skipped a beat. He hastily sunk his perception into the interspatial ring. You. As soon as his perception entered the interspatial ring, Ningyu looked as if he had seen a ghost. A child appeared in Ningyu's vision. The child was about 5 or 6 years old. His porcelain doll-like face was especially adorable. The most exaggerated thing was that there was a dark golden branch on the child's head. Ningyu could clearly sense that the dark golden branch on the child's head contained extremely terrifying energy. Your cultivation. Ningyu's attention quickly shifted from the sapling's appearance to his cultivation. Sky Supreme. Just as the sapling had said, his cultivation had already reached the Sky Supreme realm. It was no wonder that Ningyu would have such an expression on his face. Damn it, It's really infuriating to compare people to trees. Ningyu was so agitated that he directly cursed. Ningyu's cursing caused Qianhao and the one-armed man to instantly stop bickering. They both turned to look at Ningyu. Not only the one-armed man and Qianhao, but even Zhao Lin also stared at Ningyu from the other side. "Kid, have you lost your mind?" Qianhao was the first to speak. "Comparing people to trees? Don't tell me you want to compete with the world tree. Sapling, are you sure you can defeat them?" Ningyu didn't immediately answer Qianhao's question. Instead, he secretly communicated with the sapling. "I'm not very sure." The 5 or 6 years old child frowned slightly in the interspatial ring. He pretended to be an adult and placed his hands behind his back. "I'm only 100% sure. Also, I have a name. You can call me by my name, Ninglu. 100% sure? Are you sure?" "Sapling, this is no joke." Ningyu didn't care what the sapling was called. He immediately called out when he heard that the sapling was 100% sure. "My name isn't Sapling, it's Ninglu." The sapling's expression became a bit unsightly. In the next moment, he leaped into the interspatial ring and appeared in front of Ningyu. The sapling, no, it should be called Ninglu. Ninglu had done something big as soon as he appeared. Chapter 1661. Dumbfounded. You, and Qianhao's mouth fell open when he saw a 5-year-old child swallow the world tree branch. He pointed at Ninglu with his right hand, so shocked that he stuttered. That was the world tree branch. Just who in the world was this 5-year-old child? To be able to swallow the branch of the world tree into his stomach, he was completely fine. Even if Qianhao was at his peak, he wouldn't have dared to swallow the world tree branch. Qianhao was furious that the world tree branch that he'd gone to great lengths to obtain had been swallowed by a consumable. "I'll kill you." After his rage subsided, Qianhao stomped on the ground and charged at Ninglu. As far as Qianhao was concerned, he could take back the world tree branch as long as he could kill Ninglu quickly and cut open his stomach. Swoosh! The one-armed man didn't stay idle when he saw Qianhao charge forward. In fact, the one-armed man had been prepared to snatch the world tree branch when Ninglu swallowed it, but he didn't act immediately because of Qianhao's tyranny. Now that he saw Qianhao make a move, he decided to go all out and take the initiative to attack. 10,000 Elephants Formation, activate. The one-armed man was clearly more rational than Qianhao. He waved his left hand as he charged forward, activating the concealment formation around him. Whoosh! As the one-armed man growled, several pillars of light suddenly rose from all directions. These pillars of light wove together in midair, forming a huge net-like structure. "It's the 10,000 Elephants Formation." Zhao Lin's expression turned extremely ugly the moment the formation was activated. She knew how terrifying the formation was, and she'd planned to rely on the 5 stone beetles to break it. However, she hadn't expected the formation to be the 10,000 Elephants Formation. "Although I can't break it, I can reduce its power by half." Zhao Lin took a deep breath and moved her feet, beginning the arduous journey of breaking the formation. Fortunately, she had the help of the 5 stone beetles, and the one-armed man's attention was on Ninglu, so he didn't notice her at all. Otherwise, with Zhao Lin's strength, reducing the formation's power by half would be more difficult than ascending to the heaven. "Kid, since you've devoured the world tree branch, I'll kill you and snatch it back." On the other side, Qianhao made a grabbing motion with his right hand. Instantly, an enormous palm print appeared and grabbed fiercely towards Ninglu. "Be careful!" Ningyu exclaimed. The palm print was huge, and Ninglu was only 5 or 6 years old. No matter how one looked at it, Ningrode was at an absolute disadvantage. Insignificant skill. What happened next made Ningyu realize that his worries were unnecessary. Ninglu curled his lips, then leaped up, not retreating, but advancing, charging towards the giant palm print in midair. Voila! Although Ninglu was small and skinny, his impact was abnormally terrifying. Under Ninglu's attack, Qianhao's palm seal was forcefully dispersed. Heavenly Supreme, Qianhao was extremely shocked when he saw the palm print he executed being blasted apart. The child in front of him was only 5 or 6 years old, but his cultivation had already reached the terrifying Sky Supreme level. Truth be told, Qianhao had never encountered a 5 or 6-year-old heavenly sovereign in the demonic spirit realm. If it wasn't for the crystal coffin's suppression, killing you would be as easy as slaughtering a dog. After knowing Ninglu's cultivation, Qianhao immediately stopped and coldly snorted. The reason why Qianhao stopped was because he was suppressed by the crystal coffin, causing his cultivation to drop to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign. Secondly, it was because he saw the one-armed man behind Ninglu. Although the one-armed man was suppressed by the crystal coffin, his cultivation was still at the 9th grade Earth Sovereign. Qianhao was smart. He wanted the one-armed man and Ninglu to fight each other, and he would be the fisherman to reap the benefit. Russell. However, the one-armed man's actions made Qianhao realize that he was overthinking. Seeing that Qianhao had stopped, the one-armed man also stopped and no longer moved forward. Qianhao knew that the sandpiper and the clam would be the fisherman, and so did the one-armed man. As for who was the fisherman, he had to reconsider. Should I kill him or not? Qianhao and the one-armed man's stop did not affect Ninglu at all. Ninglu flew to Ningyu's side and pointed at the one-armed man, then at Qianhao, as if he was talking about something unimportant. You're going too far. Before Ningyu could answer Ninglu, Qianhao and the one-armed man berated him at the same time. Going too far. Ninglu curled his lips, then grabbed the jade bottle in front of him and poured out the reversal pill. Ningyu, from now on, this reversal pill belongs to you. Ninglu first waved the reversal pill, then threw it to Ningyu. Pa. After catching the reversal pill, Ningyu did not stand on ceremony with Ninglu and directly threw it into his interspatial ring. The reversal pill was a 10th grade elixir. Its medicinal effect was extremely domineering, and it could cure almost all kinds of poisons. Although Ningyu was not poisoned, it was still good to have the reversal pill to protect himself. That's impossible. The one-armed man cried out involuntarily when he saw Ninglu easily crush the jade bottle and give the reversal pill to Ningyu. The one-armed man definitely had a backup plan for such a precious Dharma treasure like the reversal pill. However, it was obvious that the backup plan that the one-armed man had left behind was easily broken by Ninglu. 10,000 phenomenon formation, kill. The one-armed man, who was in a state of rage, continuously took out palm-sized crystals from his pocket and threw them into the formation eye of the 10,000 phenomenon formation. As the one-armed man took out more and more crystals, the entire 10,000 phenomenon formation began to shake violently. The crystals that the one-armed man took out were genuine half-celestial crystals. Every single half-celestial crystal was a priceless treasure. In the eyes of Ningyu and Qianhao, the one-armed man taking out so many half-celestial crystals to activate the 10,000 phenomenon formation was truly a reckless waste of God's gift. Ha ha ha. Since I can't obtain the world tree branch, I'll refine all of you together. The one-armed man almost went crazy. He threw his head back and laughed wildly, then flew out of the 10,000 phenomenon formation. Enjoy yourselves from now on. When all of you are refined, it will be time for me to break through to the saint realm. The one-armed man said coldly with a malevolent expression. You want to break through to the saint realm? I'm afraid you've lost your mind. Ningyu's indifferent voice was like an iron awl that ruthlessly pierced the one-armed man's heart. Stretching out his right hand, Ningyu pointed at the 5 stone beetles and Zhao Lin, who was sweating profusely, and said, the 10,000 phenomenon formation is indeed terrifying. With so many half-celestial crystals, it can indeed refine all of us. However, you've neglected them. F***ck. Upon hearing Ningyu's words, the one-armed man hurriedly examined the 10,000 phenomenon formation. This examination left the one-armed man dumbfounded on the spot. Chapter 1662. Swallowing whole. The one-armed man was dumbfounded, extremely dumbfounded. The 10,000 elephants formation was an ancient grand formation. Very few people in the sky demon realm knew about it. The number of formation masters who could break the 10,000 elephants formation could be counted on one hand. Why was his luck so bad? There were only a few people in the crystal coffin, but one of them could break the 10,000 elephants formation. Moreover, it was a woman with a low cultivation base. The one-armed man almost jumped up in anger. Fortunately, the 10,000 elephants formation can still exert half of its power. After inspecting the 10,000 elephants formation again, the one-armed man revealed a relieved expression. As long as the 10,000 elephants formation could exert half of its power, he would be able to refine Ningyu and Qianhao and the others. Let me show you what this is. The corner of the one-armed man's mouth curled up. He reached into his robe with his left hand again and took out a palm-sized crystal. An immortal crystal. That's right, what the one-armed man took out this time was a genuine immortal crystal. A half-step immortal crystal could allow the 10,000 elephants formation to exert great power, but an immortal crystal could double the power of the 10,000 elephants formation. Obviously, if the 10,000 elephants formation could double its power, then no matter how hard Zhao Lin and the 5 stone beetles tried, they would not be able to stop Ningyu and Qianhao and the others from being refined. An immortal crystal? Ninglu stared at the immortal crystal in the one-armed man's hand, his eyes shining brightly. In the next instant, the dark golden branch above Ninglu's head shot out and charged toward the one-armed man. Ha ha ha, I think you've lost your mind. Not only is the 10,000 elephants formation powerful, but it also isolates the inside from the outside world. Ninglu's actions made the one-armed man throw his head back and laugh. However, before the one-armed man could finish laughing, he looked at his empty palm with a dumbfounded expression. The palm-sized immortal crystal in the one-armed man's left palm had long since disappeared. Hiss. At the same time, Ninglu controlled the dark golden branch, which wrapped the immortal crystals, to penetrate the defense of the 1,000 phenomenon array and return to him. Fiddling with the immortal crystal, Ninglu tossed it to Ningyu. Your cultivation is only at the 1st grade Earth Sovereign Realm, so you can have this immortal crystal. I hope that you can reach the Heavenly Sovereign Realm as soon as possible. When Ninglu spoke, he acted like an elder. He didn't look like a 5 or 6-year-old child at all. Ningyu was speechless. Not to mention one, even if he was given 10 immortal crystals, he still wouldn't be able to reach the Sky Supreme Realm. According to Ningyu's estimation, if he could refine a piece of immortal crystal, his cultivation would rise from 1st grade Earth Supreme Realm to 3rd grade Earth Supreme Realm. If he could refine these 2 immortal crystals, his cultivation would most likely advance to the 5th grade Earth Supreme Realm. Currently, Ningyu had a total of 2 immortal crystals on him. One was given to him by Ninglu, and the other was obtained in the secret chamber, which was still in the huge crystal. Ningyu didn't dare to refine the immortal crystal right now. After all, Qianhao and the one-armed man were still eyeing him. Unless Ninglu could get rid of them, Ningyu would never refine the immortal crystal. Qianhao. The one-armed man's face turned extremely gloomy when he saw that Ninglu had snatched the immortal crystal. He said to Qianhao in a deep voice, "As long as you help me kill that brat, I'll open the 1,000 phenomenon array and let you out. Dream on." Qianhao sneered. How can the 1,000 phenomenon array, which can only display half of its power, trap me? As he spoke, Qianhao took out a black flying sword from his bosom. If one looked carefully, they would see that there was a 5-clawed black dragon on the black flying sword. Because of the 5-clawed black dragon on the sword, the black flying sword Qianhao took out was called the Black Dragon Sword. Black Dragon Sword. The one-armed man couldn't help but take a few steps back. The reason why the one-armed man was afraid of Qianhao was because he possessed the Black Dragon Sword. At least you're sensible. You actually know about the Black Dragon Sword. Qianhao injected the primordial energy in his body into the Black Dragon Sword and then slashed it through the air. Roar. A resounding dragon roar sounded. Then, an enormous phantom of a 5-clawed black dragon flew out from the Black Dragon Sword. Whoosh. The 5-clawed black dragon charged left and right, quickly breaking the 1,000 phenomenon array completely. Seeing that Qianhao easily broke the 1,000 phenomenon array, Ningyu and Zhao Lin's faces darkened. They were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Dragons were indeed terrifying creatures. Although the one on the Black Dragon Sword was only a phantom, breaking the 1,000 phenomenon array was still as easy as ever. After breaking the 1,000 phenomenon array, Qianhao didn't leave. Instead, he retreated to the other side with the black dragon sword in hand. There was also the one-armed man diagonally across from him and Ninglu to his left. The three of them formed a triangular formation. Under such circumstances, whoever made the first move would most likely be surrounded and attacked by the other two. For a moment, the area became so quiet that even breathing could be heard clearly. Shoo! Ninglu, are you sure you can kill Qianhao and the one-armed man? If not, let's leave as soon as possible. Ningyu's soul power surged as he transmitted his voice to Ninglu. Don't worry, I'll be able to kill them in one move in another half an hour. As Ninglu spoke, he quietly approached Ningyu. Ninglu's movement was completely seen by Qianhao and the one-armed man. However, Qianhao and the one-armed man didn't say anything. After all, in their opinion, so what if they let Ningyu and Ninglu communicate? Ningyu was only a first-grade Earth sovereign, so how could he cause any huge waves? Qianhao and the one-armed man's attitude gave Ninglu a chance. Give me all the crystals, elixirs, and artifacts you have, Ninglu said without batting an eyelid. Hearing Ninglu's words, Ningyu was slightly stunned. However, Ningyu wasn't an indecisive person. He left behind the fate reversal pellet, the red demon sword, the phantom armor, and a few other necessary artifacts and elixirs. As for the rest, he gave them to Ninglu. The fate reversal pellet could cure 100 poisons, so Ningyu naturally had to keep it. The red demon sword was Ningyu's natal artifact, and the phantom armor could be upgraded as long as it had enough energy. No matter what, Ningyu had to keep these items. As for the other items, Ningyu kept a few of the most important ones and threw the rest to Ninglu. After receiving the interspatial pouch from Ningyu, Ninglu threw it into his mouth without a word. Crack! After chewing a few times, Ninglu swallowed the interspatial pouch in one gulp. Gulp! Ninglu's actions made Ningyu swallow a mouthful of saliva. Damn it, isn't this too terrifying? When Ninglu was a sapling, he could devour everything. Now that he had turned into a human, his devouring ability had greatly increased. Ningyu felt a headache coming on. When the Dark Emperor woke up, the law of space returned, the red demon sword successfully upgraded, and Hairy Ball woke up. What kind of collision would happen when the five of them were together? Chapter 1663. BZZZ. BZZZ. Ningyu's anticipation didn't last long before his attention was drawn by Ninglu. After devouring the storage pouch, Ninglu had undergone a huge change. The most obvious change was that the dark golden branch above Ninglu's head had grown several times larger in a short period of time. Gulp! Ningyu stared fixedly at the dark golden branch above Ninglu's head and couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. His expression had become extremely interesting. Ningyu sensed an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation from the dark golden branch. This energy fluctuation wasn't something that ordinary heavenly sovereigns could display. Swish! Swish! Ningyu wasn't the only one who focused his attention on the dark golden branch. Qianhao and one-armed man's attention was similarly drawn to it. This little fellow isn't really pretending to be weak, is he? Qianhao gripped the black dragon sword tightly. He was shocked to the extreme. A 5- or 6-year-old heavenly sovereign was already shocking enough. But now, this heavenly sovereign was actually able to emit such a terrifying energy fluctuation. Instantly, Qianhao became cautious. At this moment, Qianhao had already viewed Ninglu as his number one enemy. Ninglu was even more dangerous than one-armed man. Wasn't one-armed man the same as Qianhao? In fact, one-armed man was even more worried than Qianhao. After all, Qianhao possessed the black dragon sword and was extremely powerful. One-armed man's overall strength had instantly dropped by more than half after the manifestation formation was broken. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation was slightly higher than Qianhao's, one-armed man would have probably been killed by Qianhao's black dragon sword a long time ago. One-armed man's eyes swiveled as he thought of a countermeasure. Why don't we join forces and deal with that little kid first? Right at this moment, Qianhao's voice resounded in one-armed man's ears. One-armed man's heart trembled when he heard this, but he maintained his composure and replied, that little kid isn't simple. Even if we join forces, we might not be his match. Don't boost the morale of others and belittle your own. And Qianhao said coldly, a mere 5 or 6-year-old kid isn't worthy of my attention. Since you don't place him in your eyes, then fine. Go kill him. I'll hold the line for you, the one-armed man said indifferently. The one-armed man was not a fool. His overall strength was the weakest among the three. Even if he joined forces with Qianhao to defeat and even kill Ninglu, he himself was bound to suffer a miserable fate. Rather than that, he might as well find a way to leave the crystal coffin. As long as they left the crystal coffin, Imperial Peak could activate the strangulation formation and kill Ninglu and Qianhao in one fell swoop. Short-sighted. Qianhao glared coldly at the one-armed man, then turned his head away without another word. At this point, Qianhao knew that he could only rely on himself. It was better to rely on oneself than on others. Only by relying on oneself would one have a chance of survival. Drip. Drip. Time passed by. Neither Qianhao nor the one-armed man took the initiative to attack. Their eyes flickered as they searched for Ninglu's weakness. As long as Ninglu revealed a weakness, the two of them would leave immediately and think of a way to break the crystal coffin. Breaking the crystal coffin was Qianhao and the one-armed man's only chance to escape. Buzz. After a period of refinement and absorption, the dark golden branch on top of Ninglu's head had grown to the thickness of an arm. When half an hour was up, Ninglu's head jerked violently. Swoosh. Suddenly, the dark golden branch on top of his head grew bigger and charged towards Qianhao. Let's go. The one-armed man made a prompt decision to escape when he saw Ninglu deal with Qianhao first. However, what happened next made the one-armed man realize his mistake. The dark golden branch that was charging at Qianhao split into two in mid-air. One continued to charge at Qianhao while the other turned around and charged at the one-armed man. Damn it! The one-armed man cursed as he waved his left hand continuously. Vital energy surged out from his body in an attempt to stop the dark golden branch from advancing. TSK. TSK. The one-armed man's decision was foolish. Ninglu was the world tree, and the dark golden branch on top of his head had the ability to devour all things. Although the one-armed man's yuan qi was terrifying, it was quickly devoured by the dark golden branch's powerful devouring power. What? The one-armed man was dumbfounded by this discovery. He initially thought that the vital energy he unleashed would be able to resist the dark golden branch for a long time, allowing him to escape successfully. However, the current situation was that the essence qi that he had released was instantly devoured. Although the one-armed man was suppressed by the crystal coffin and his cultivation was only at the pinnacle of the 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm, the vital energy he could use was only at the level of a pinnacle of the 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. However, Ninglu's dark golden branch could devour the vital energy of a pinnacle of the 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm in an instant. So one could only imagine how terrifying the two branches would be when combined. Thinking about it, the little bit of resistance that rose in the one-armed man's heart was instantly thrown to the back of his mind. At this moment, there was only one thought in the one-armed man's mind: run. Whoosh. It could only be said that it was extremely foolish for the one-armed man to still think of running away. Ninglu controlled the dark golden branch to spread out once more. 1 split into 2, 2 split into 4, 4 split into 8. In just a few moments, the entire area was enveloped by the dark golden branch. The one-armed man had nowhere to run. He was firmly surrounded by several dark golden branches, unable to move. In order to prevent the one-armed man from doing something desperate, Ninglu did not use the dark golden branch's devouring power. He only used it to trap the one-armed man and did not devour him. No matter what, the one-armed man was still a half-step saint expert. If it wasn't for the crystal coffin's suppression, he wouldn't have been captured. If the one-armed man discovered that he had no chance of survival, needless to say, he would definitely do something desperate and put his life on the line. After restraining the one-armed man, Ninglu handed a portion of the dark golden branch to Ningyu, while he focused on dealing with Qianhao. After all, compared to the one-armed man, who was afraid of death, Qianhao was a tough nut to crack. Open. and Qianhao slashed out with the black dragon sword. Whoosh! A powerful wave of sword energy surged in the area. In the next moment, the dark golden branches around Qianhao could not withstand the black dragon sword's powerful sword energy and were forcefully cut into two. Open again, and Qianhao was not satisfied with cutting off most of the dark golden branches. His figure flashed. Instead of retreating, he advanced and attacked the main dark golden branch in midair. Ninglu split the dark golden branch above his head into two. He gave one to Ningyu to control to deal with the one-armed man. He controlled the other one to deal with Qianhao. Now, Qianhao used the black dragon sword to find this dark golden branch. There was no doubt about it. Chapter 1664. Chapter 1664. Chapter 1664. Give chase, come back. At this critical moment, Ninglu's heart shook, and he hastily tried to retract the dark golden branches that were trapping Qianhao. Ninglu's main body was the world tree, and the dark golden branch could be said to be Ninglu's heart. Once the dark golden branch was destroyed, Ninglu's strength would be greatly affected. Even their lives would be threatened. So no matter what, Ninglu couldn't allow the dark gold branch that was equivalent to his heart to be severed by Qianhao. Black Dragon Sword Qi. However, Ninglu's movements were obviously half a beat slower. Qianhao swung the dark dragon sword in his hand. Instantly, a terrifying strand of sword qi flashed out and slashed fiercely towards the dark gold branch. Everyone, go! At the critical moment, Ninglu controlled the other dark golden branches in the air and made them block the main branch. Catcher! Catcher! Under the terrifying might of the black dragon sword qi, the many dark golden branches were cut in half like vegetables. Bang! Even though many of the dark golden branches were quickly cut in half, their sacrifice reduced the burden on Ningrod's main dark golden branch. The black dragon sword qi slashed at the last dark golden branch, but it didn't cut it in half. It only left a tiny mark. What a pity! Qianhao immediately withdrew the black dragon sword after his strike failed, and then he turned around and flashed towards the distance. Qianhao was very clearly aware that the sword strike from before was his best opportunity. After all, Ninglu had yet to react. Now that Ninglu was on guard, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens for him to cut off Ninglu's dark golden branches. Rumble! Qianhao swung the dark dragon sword in his hand as he flashed, and numerous strands of dark dragon sword qi floated before assaulting Ninglu from all directions. Ningyu, I'll leave this drop of liquid to you. If the one-armed hero dares to resist, force this drop of liquid into his body. Seeing that Qianhao wanted to leave, Ninglu tossed a drop of dark green liquid to Ningyu and hurriedly said a few words before chasing after Qianhao. What happened today made Ninglu feel that he had lost a bit of face. Ningyu helped him stall for time so that he could transform. Before he took human form, he had boasted that he would take care of Qianhao and the one-armed man for Ningyu. Now that the one-armed man had trapped him, Qianhao wanted to escape. If this could be tolerated, how could it be tolerated? Therefore, Ninglu hurriedly gave a few instructions to Ningyu and quickly rushed out. He was determined to kill Qianhao. After Ninglu and Qianhao vanished, this area became quiet. Kid, do you know who I am? The silence did not last long before it was broken by the one-armed man's voice. If Ninglu was here, the one-armed man wouldn't dare to act rashly. After all, he was wary of the many dark golden branches around him. Now that Ninglu had left, the one-armed man felt that his chance had come. From the one-armed man's point of view, Ningyu was only a first-grade Earth sovereign. He could easily deceive Ningyu with a few flowery words. By then, he would think of a way to open the crystal coffin and contact the Imperial Peak in the outside world. Wouldn't that be great? Of course I do. You must be from Emperor God Palace. Ningyu looked indifferent as he said, Emperor God Palace occupied the entire holy grade primordial crystal mineral vein, and Imperial Peak found so many scapegoats to set up a formation to catch everyone in one fell swoop. You're smart. Hurry up and remove the darn dark golden branches. I guarantee that you will become the palace master of Emperor God Palace, the one-armed man said coldly. I'm sorry. Besides that, I also know that Imperial Peak set up a formation to trap so many scapegoats. They only have one motive, which is to let you break through to the Sage Realm. Ningyu shrugged and said. Rumble. Ningyu's words shocked the one-armed man. How did you know? The one-armed man stretched out his left hand and pointed at Ningyu. He exclaimed, Did Imperial Peak tell you? No, Imperial Peak set up a formation outside. How did you enter the crystal coffin? Suddenly, the one-armed man thought of a terrifying matter. Ningyu was only a Grade 1 Earth Supreme. Even with the help of Zhao Lin and the 5 stone beetles, it was impossible for him to break through Imperial Peak's blockade and barge into the crystal coffin. There was only one possibility for such a situation to occur. Imperial Peak must have been killed. The one-armed man's face grew extremely gloomy. It was terrifyingly gloomy. If that was the case, the plan that he had spent so much manpower and resources on would collapse. In order to break through to the Sage Realm, not only did he fall out with the old ancestor of Moling Mountain Range, but he had also mobilized many resources from Emperor God Palace. It could be said that the current Emperor God Palace was just an empty shell, and it only looked impressive. If he couldn't break through to the Sage Realm after spending so much effort, Emperor God Palace would face a disaster. The one-armed man's original plan was to defeat Qianhao in battle, devour him, and refine him. Then, he would make use of the formation that Imperial Peak had set up to kill many Heaven Supreme experts. Under this premise, he could advance to the Sage Realm successfully. After advancing to the Sage Realm, he wouldn't be afraid of the old ancestor of Moling Mountain Range. Who would have thought that there would be a serious problem in the first step? The pressure from the crystal coffin was too strong. It was so strong that he was only left with the cultivation of Grade 9 Earth Supreme. Under such circumstances, he naturally couldn't defeat Qianhao. The ideal was great, but the reality was harsh. These words could not be more appropriate to describe the one-armed man. To be honest, I'm on good terms with Imperial Peak. Looking at the one-armed man's nervous expression, Ningyu had an idea and said, The reason why I could enter the crystal coffin was because of Imperial Peak's help. Is that true? The one-armed man looked at Ningyu suspiciously and asked, How can you prove it? It's easy to prove it. Ningyu shrugged, then waved at the stone beetle next to him and said, All of you, come here. Whoosh. 5 stone beetles flapped their wings and stopped in front of Ningyu. Ningyu pointed at the 5 stone beetles and said to the one-armed man, These stone beetles are the best proof. Are you kidding me? The one-armed man was furious and said coldly, You think a few stone beetles can prove it? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? Imperial Peak asked me to bring these stone beetles into the crystal coffin. He was afraid that you would be at a disadvantage in the fight with Qianhao, so he asked me to bring 5 stone beetles in to help you fight against Qianhao. Ningyu's expression didn't change as if he was talking about something normal. Since you want to lie to me, I'll pretend to be a snake and see what you're up to. The one-armed man looked calm on the surface, but he had already seen through Ningyu's scheme. The reason why he didn't expose Ningyu was because the one-armed man wanted Ningyu to help him remove the dark golden branches from his body. Chapter 1665. Chapter 1665. Chapter 1665. Sage Arm. Alright. As long as you remove the dark golden branches from my body, I will choose to believe you. The one-armed man stared at Ningyu, nodded heavily, and said in a deep voice, What's so difficult about that? Ningyu smiled and patted the stone beetle leader with his right hand. He said, You guys go and help me move the dark golden branches away. Shoo. No one noticed. When Ningyu's right hand came into contact with the stone beetle leader, a drop of green liquid quietly entered the stone beetle leader's wing. Ningyu transmitted his voice to the stone beetle leader. As long as there's a chance, I'll inject this green liquid into the one-armed man's body. The green liquid was left behind by Ninglu to deal with the one-armed man. Now that Ninglu was chasing after Qianhao, Ningyu had no choice but to make a risky move in order to prevent the one-armed man from doing something desperate. With the help of the stone beetle leader, he injected the dark green liquid into the one-armed man's body. Although Ningyu did not know what the function of the aquamarine liquid was, Ningyu still chose to believe in Ninglu. Voila! The stone beetle leader understood, and immediately flew towards the one-armed man with the remaining 4 stone beetles. Ningyu, don't move the dark golden branches. Seeing the 5 stone beetles rushing towards the one-armed man, Zhao Lin's face darkened. She hurriedly transmitted her voice to Ningyu. The one-armed man is not a good person. Once he escapes, we will fall into a hopeless situation. Don't worry, I know what to do. Ningyu waved his hand, signaling Zhao Lin not to worry. There were many dark golden branches trapping the one-armed man, but there was only one of them. The dark golden branch above the one-armed man's head was about as thick as an arm, and contained terrifying energy fluctuations. As long as the dark golden branches above his head didn't move, the one-armed man wouldn't be able to escape in a short time. This was also the reason why Ningyu wasn't worried at all. Ningyu was waiting for the stone beetle leader to inject the green liquid into the one-armed man's body. Success or failure depended on this. Swish, 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 swish. If they were acting, they had to be realistic. As the 5 stone beetles advanced, Ningyu controlled the dark golden branches around the one-armed man's body to move away. I'd like to see what you have up your sleeves. The corner of the one-armed man's mouth curled up slightly as he murmured, the dark golden branches have a great influence on me. As long as all the dark golden branches are removed, I can kill all of you. In truth, the one-armed man was right. What he feared the most was the dark golden branch left behind by Ninglu. For some reason, the one-armed man sensed an aura that made his heart palpitate from the dark golden branches. This aura was extremely terrifying, so terrifying that the one-armed man did not dare to act rashly. Now that there were fewer and fewer dark golden branches, the palpitations in the one-armed man's heart were also weakening. A moment later, most of the dark golden branches around the one-armed man were moved away. Only the dark golden branch on top of his head was still intact. What do you mean? The one-armed man's face instantly darkened. He pointed at the dark golden branch above his head and coldly said, "This dark golden branch on top of my head, why don't you move it away?" Hee, don't be nervous. The dark golden branch on top of your head is a bit thick. It would take 5 stone beetles to move it away. Ningyu smiled and replied, "Buzz." As Ningyu's faint laughter faded away, the 5 stone beetles flapped their wings and quickly flew above the one-armed man's head. Among them, the stone beetle was slightly behind, while the other 4 were very close to the one-armed man. This is bad. Looking up at the 5 stone beetles, the one-armed man didn't know why, but he felt a chill in his heart. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. Whoosh. As expected. As it turned out, the one-armed man's conjecture was absolutely correct. The 4 stone beetles quickly moved and rushed towards the one-armed man side by side. The dark golden branch on top of the one-armed man's head also quickly followed behind the 4 stone beetles. Even the dark golden branch that Ningyu had moved earlier returned to its original path and charged at the one-armed man. Ningyu, you're courting death. The one-armed man knew that Ningyu would attack him, but he didn't expect it to be so soon. Originally, the one-armed man thought that Ningyu would attack when the last dark golden branch was moved away, because that was when his attention would be at its weakest. Who would have thought that Ningyu would suddenly attack and catch him off guard? I'll kill you. The one-armed man waved his remaining left hand and unleashed a few powerful palm prints. Crack, crack, crack. Unfortunately, the palm prints that the one-armed man unleashed were completely blocked by the surrounding dark golden branches. In the blink of an eye, the 4 stone beetles arrived in front of the one-armed man. They roared and used their sharp claws to scratch the one-armed man. Die. The one-armed man was enraged, the veins on his arms bulged. In order to deal with the 4 stone beetles, the one-armed man used both his hands and feet. Every punch, every kick, he used his full strength, not holding back at all. Bang, 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 bang. Under the one-armed man's powerful attack. The 4 stone beetles didn't last long before they were all killed. He's so powerful. Seeing the 4 stone beetles killed, Ningyu's heart sank. Ningyu knew that the one-armed man was powerful, but he didn't expect him to be this powerful. Ningyu's plan was very simple. He would let the 4 stone beetles stall the one-armed man, then let the stone beetle leader suddenly attack and inject the green liquid into the one-armed man's body. But now, something went wrong, and the 4 stone beetles were beaten to death. Crack! As if seeing its clansmen being killed by the one-armed man, the stone beetle leader became angry. The flapping of its wings increased in frequency, and in an instant, the stone beetle leader appeared behind the one-armed man. Crack! The stone beetle leader waved its claws, and while the one-armed man was unprepared, it used its sharp claws to leave a large bloody mark on the one-armed man's back. Although it was angry, the stone beetle leader didn't forget Ningyu's instructions. It had already transferred the green liquid from its wings to its claws, and when it used its claws to scratch the one-armed man, the green liquid had already entered the one-armed man's body. Ah! A bloody mark appeared on the one-armed man's back, and he became even more enraged. Today, I will kill all of you even if I have to suffer serious injuries. The one-armed man's eyes turned blood red, and his left arm also quickly enlarged. Moreover, the one-armed man's left arm didn't just grow bigger. Apart from that, his entire arm had turned black. Not good, it's a saint's arm. The appearance of the one-armed man's arm caused Ningyu's heart to sink to the bottom. A saint's arm. Ningyu felt a terrifying aura from the one-armed man's left arm. Without a doubt, this aura was far beyond a peak sky supreme. Chapter 1666. Chapter 1666. Chapter 1666 Death. You're smart enough to know that I have the sage's arm. The one-armed man was very satisfied with Ningyu's reaction. How are you going to fight me now that I have the sage's arm? The one-armed man paid an unbearable price to fuse with the sage's arm. At first, the one-armed man wanted to fuse with his right arm after obtaining the sage's arm. After preparing for a year and consuming a lot of resources, the one-armed man started to fuse with the sage's arm in the secret room of the Divine Emperor Palace. However, the outcome disappointed the one-armed man. Not only did he fail to fuse with the sage's arm, but he also lost his right arm. After losing his right arm, the one-armed man's vitality was greatly damaged. It took several years for him to recover. The one-armed man was not the kind of person who would give up easily. As soon as he recovered, he immediately abandoned his left arm and started to fuse with the sage's arm. It took the one-armed man 3 years to fuse with the sage's arm. It was completely worth it for the one-armed man to use 3 years to fuse with the sage's arm. Because this time, the one-armed man succeeded. The one-armed man was a half-step sage, but his left arm was the sage's arm, which could exert the power of a sage. Everything had an accident. The one-armed man's accident was that every time he used the sage's arm, his cultivation would drop to the creation realm and he would need to cultivate again. The one-armed man's cultivation was different from that of ordinary creation realm martial artists. Ordinary creation realm martial artists might not be able to cultivate to the Sky Supreme realm in their lifetime. However, the one-armed man only needed 3 months to cultivate from the creation realm to the peak of the Sky Supreme realm and successfully become a half-step sage. During the 3-month period of weakness, the one-armed man had only used the sage's arm once since he obtained it. The only time this had happened was when they had seized the Saint Grade Yuan crystal mine. The one-armed hero had used his saint's arm to duel with the Moling Mountain Range's patriarch, severely injuring him and seizing control of the Saint Grade Yuan crystal mine. Of course, this matter was confidential. Only a few people in the entire Dancheng continent knew about it. Now that he used the sage's arm again, the one-armed man had no choice but to do something desperate. If he didn't use the sage's arm, he might be killed. Break. The next moment, the one-armed man waved his left arm and grabbed the dark golden branch above his head. The result of using the sage's arm to fight against the dark golden branch was obvious. Come back. At this critical moment, Ningyu controlled the dark golden branch to return to where it came from while using all the strength in his body to block the one-armed man's attack. Ningyu's heart was as clear as a mirror. The dark golden branch was Ninglu's life branch, so it couldn't be destroyed no matter what. Because once this dark golden branch was destroyed, Ninglu's strength would be greatly affected. Right now, Ninglu was chasing after Enchantment. If his strength decreased, it was very likely that he would be the one being chased by Enchantment. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Ningyu's crazy actions slightly stunned the one-armed man. Then, the one-armed man changed his direction and began to attack Ningyu. The one-armed man's left arm was the arm of a sage. A full-powered strike from him was enough to smash Ningyu into a meat patty. Poochie. In this dangerous situation, the one-armed man seemed to be affected by something and immediately spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. As for the one-armed man's sage arm, it seemed to be greatly affected as well. The aura it emitted instantly dropped from the sage realm to the half-saint realm. Moreover, the speed of the drop continued to rise. Half-saint, peak Sky Supreme, late-stage Sky Supreme, mid-stage Sky Supreme. It only stopped when the aura dropped to the mid-stage Sky Supreme. Damn the crystal coffin! The one-armed man was about to explode from anger. He had calculated everything, but he hadn't expected the crystal coffin. The terrifying suppressive force of the crystal coffin had suppressed his cultivation from half-saint to 9th grade Earth Supreme. Now, his Sage Realm arm was suppressed to the mid-stage Sky Supreme. What the hell is the crystal coffin? Why isn't our aura suppressed? Taking advantage of the one-armed man's pause, Ningyu hastily retreated with the dark golden branch, the stone beetle, and Jiaolin and the others. In fact, it was no wonder that Ningyu was puzzled. The one-armed man, and Qianhao, and the others were all suppressed by the crystal coffin and their cultivation had dropped significantly. However, their cultivation did not drop in the slightest. Could it be that only experts above the half-saint realm are suppressed by the crystal coffin? Ningyu frowned slightly. He wasn't too sure about the situation. Shaking his head with all his might, Ningyu stared at the one-armed man. Although the one-armed man's Sage Realm arm could only unleash the strength of a mid-stage Sky Supreme, it was enough to deal with them. There was only one thought in Ningyu's mind right now, and that was for the emerald liquid to take effect as soon as possible. Ninglu's expression was solemn when he handed the emerald liquid to him. It didn't make sense that the emerald liquid hadn't taken effect after so long. Ningyu, you're all going to die too. The one-armed man vented all his anger on Ningyu. He stomped on the ground and dashed forward. In any case, the one-armed man was determined to kill Ningyu. The one-armed man calculated the time. After he killed Ningyu, Imperial Peak would definitely think of a way to open the crystal coffin. Once the crystal coffin was opened and Imperial Peak activated the formation, he wouldn't have to be afraid of Qianhao and Ninglu anymore. Bang! Everything was unpredictable and everyone had their ups and downs. Today was destined to be a tragic day for the one-armed man. He had only flown a few steps when he felt dizzy and his vision blurred. He fell heavily on the ground and fell face first. Crack, crack. There were two crisp sounds. The one-armed man's two front teeth were knocked out. The one-armed man definitely wouldn't have a good ending when his teeth collided with the ground. It's all your doing. The one-armed man crawled up from the ground with difficulty. He pointed at Ningyu with his left hand and said in a deep voice, "I'm going to skin you alive and whip your..." "Stop. Stop." Ningyu gestured for the one-armed man to stop and said, "With your current strength, how are you going to skin me alive and whip my tendons?" "Me." Just as the one-armed man was about to retort, he noticed something that terrified him. His cultivation seemed to have suffered some sort of suppression, dropping from the 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm to the 9th grade Mortal Sovereign Realm. It was a huge drop in his cultivation. "Leader Stone Beetle, hurry up and kill him." Ningyu didn't waste time talking to the one-armed man. He took out the dark golden branch and ordered the leader Stone Beetle to attack. Even though the one-armed man was a half-saint expert at his peak and had terrifying battle experience, he couldn't cook without rice. The one-armed man's current cultivation base was only grade 9 Human Supreme. The sage arm that he was so proud of could only unleash the strength of a grade 5 Earth Supreme. Under such circumstances, his overall strength was far from the leader Stone Beetle, which was a peak grade 9 Earth Supreme. On top of that, Ningyu used the dark golden branch. The one-armed man couldn't escape this time. Chapter 1667. You want to kill me? It won't be that easy. You want to kill me? The more dangerous a situation was, the more powerful one could be. The one-armed warrior was no exception. Looking at the stone beetle leader and the dark golden branch that was approaching him, the one-armed man's left arm bulged, and he punched the stone beetle leader with all his might. The one-armed warrior's left arm was the sage's arm. The sage's arm was extremely hard. Bang! A crisp sound rang out as the sage's arm and the leader clashed. Fortunately, the sage's arm was suppressed by the crystal coffin and could only exert the strength of a 5th-grade Earth Supreme. Otherwise, even if the rock beetle leader didn't die, it would still lose a layer of its skin. Buzz! The stone beetle leader flapped its wings and dashed forward, engaging in a fierce battle with the one-armed man. As for the sage's arm, it was countered by the dark golden branch. The power of the dark golden branch went without saying. It had no problem dealing with the sage's arm, which was only a 5th-grade Earth Supreme. The sage's arm was suppressed by the dark golden branch, and the one-armed warrior was no match for the leader. The result was already decided. In just 10 minutes, the one-armed warrior was severely injured by the leader. Don't kill him yet. Seeing that the rock beetle leader wanted to kill the one-armed man, Ningyu hurriedly said, "Let me ask him a few questions." Ningyu walked up to the one-armed warrior and said in a low voice, "If you can answer 3 of my questions honestly, I can spare your life." The one-armed man raised his head and glanced at Ningyu, revealing a malicious expression. The one-armed warrior was the ancestor of the Emperor Palace, a half-step saint. If it wasn't for the crystal coffin and the green liquid suppressing his cultivation, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Moreover, the one-armed warrior was no fool. He knew that Ningyu was not that kind. If he guessed correctly, Ningyu wanted to control him, because he was the ancestral patriarch of Divine Emperor Palace. As long as Ningyu controlled him, he would be able to control the entire Divine Emperor Palace. "I won't answer a single one of your questions. You should just give up." The one-armed man looked at Ningyu coldly and said, "Even if you kill me, you won't be able to escape from Imperial Peak and Imperial God Palace." Hearing the one-armed man's words, Ningyu shook his head slightly. Then, he looked at the stone beetle leader and gently slid his right hand across his neck. Shoo! The stone beetle leader understood and immediately flapped its wings, rushing towards the one-armed man. Whoosh! The leader of the stone beetles was a pinnacle 9th-grade Earth Sovereign. The stone beetle leader pierced through the one-armed man's forehead and came out from the back of his head. Thump! The one-armed man's eyes widened in disbelief. His body fell heavily to the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. Even in death, the one-armed man could not understand why Ningyu was so decisive. The one-armed man had said those words to Ningyu because he was sure that Ningyu would not kill him. He wanted to pique Ningyu's curiosity. Only by piquing Ningyu's curiosity could he gain more time. Who would have thought that Ningyu would not play by the rules and let the stone beetle leader kill him? Whoosh! Ningyu only heaved a sigh of relief when he confirmed the one-armed hero's death, revealing an expression of relief. When he entered the crystal coffin, Ningyu did not expect to kill the one-armed man, who was a pinnacle expert. To be able to kill the one-armed man, Ningyu had to thank the crystal coffin, the stone beetle leader, and Ninglu. Oh yeah, I wonder how Ninglu is doing now. Before Ningyu could feel excited after killing the one-armed man, his face turned grave. And Qianhao was an expert who was even more terrifying than the one-armed man. If Ninglu chased after Qianhao alone, he might run into danger. At the thought of this, Ningyu had an idea and directly gave up control of the dark golden branch. It was extremely dangerous for Ninglu to chase after Qianhao with a dark golden branch. If he had 2 dark golden branches, his chances of winning would be higher. Whoosh! As soon as Ningyu gave up control of the dark golden branch, it sped off into the distance. It seemed to be in a hurry. Stone beetle leader, follow the dark golden branch. Ningyu hurriedly instructed the stone beetle leader. If it weren't for the fact that Ningyu was only a 1st-grade Earth Sovereign, he would have definitely gone to help. After all, with his current strength, he would not be able to help Ninglu. Instead, he would be more of a hindrance. Letting the stone beetle leader go would be the best choice. Let me see what treasures you have on you. After the stone beetle leader and the dark golden branch left, Ningyu moved towards the one-armed man and started searching his body. A brief moment later, Ningyu's face was filled with disappointment. That was because Ning Yu only found an interspatial pouch on the one-armed man. There were only 1,000,000 Saint-grade origin crystals in the interspatial pouch. Although 1,000,000 Saint-grade origin crystals were a lot, it didn't match the one-armed man's identity. After keeping the Saint-grade origin crystals, Ning Yu's attention shifted to the one-armed man's left arm. The Saint's arm. There was no need for Ning Yu to explain the power of the Saint's arm. Even if Ning Yu would not fuse with the Saint's arm, it would not be wrong to keep it. Crack. Ning Yu raised his right hand and a cold light flashed. The cold light cut off the one-armed man's left arm. Taking out an interspatial pouch from his interspatial ring, Ning Yu placed the Saint's arm into it. As soon as he put the Saint's arm into the interspatial ring, Ning Yu's attention was attracted by the one-armed man's broken shoulder. There were a few incantations engraved on it. Emperor God Technique. Looking closely, Ning Yu found that the incantations engraved on the one-armed man's shoulder were the Emperor God Technique. Previously, Ning Yu had forced Di Ling to tell him the cultivation incantations of the first 10 forms of the Emperor God Technique. Now that he saw the cultivation incantations of the last 2 forms from the one-armed man, Ning Yu was quite excited. When he got the Emperor God Technique, Ning Yu tried to cultivate it. In the end, Ning Yu found that the power of the Emperor God Technique and the Supreme 9 Purities Sword Technique was not very different. Relatively speaking, the more powerful the Supreme 9 Purities Sword Technique was, the more powerful it was. The 7th form of the Supreme 9 Purities Sword Technique was the Death Sword Wave, the 8th form was the Life Sword Wave, and the 9th form was the Broken Sword Wave. Recently, Ning Yu often took time to cultivate. Ning Yu had already mastered the 8th form of the Supreme 9 Purities Sword Technique, the Life Sword Wave. The 9th form of the Emperor God Technique, the Heaven Breaking. The power of the Life Sword Wave was comparable to the Heaven Breaking. Of course. Whether it was the Life Sword Wave or the 9th form of the Emperor God Technique, they were far less powerful than the 10th palm of the Netherworld Samsara palm and the Yin-Yang palm. Since I got the Emperor God Technique, why don't I cultivate the last 2 forms of the Emperor God Technique here? Suddenly, Ning Yu seemed to have thought of something. Then he threw the one-armed man's body into the interspatial ring, sat down cross-legged, and began to cultivate the 10th form of the Emperor God Technique. Chapter 1668. Chapter 1668. Chapter 1668. A monstrous advancement. Seeing Ning Yu's action, Zhao Lin's mouth was slightly open, and she was a little confused. Ning Yu's heart was really big. Ning Lu chased after Qianhao, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. For Ning Yu to cultivate at this time, he was either stupid or rusty. Voila! However, in the next moment, Zhao Lin knew that she was wrong, very wrong. In the distance, 2 figures, one in front and one behind, quickly flew over. The figure at the forefront, who else could it be but Ning Lu? In Ning Lu's hand, there was a corpse. And Qianhao. Gulp. Zhao Lin swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She was so shocked that her eyeballs almost fell out. Although Ning Lu looked very weak, and the stone beetle leader's wings were broken, Ning Lu was still very confident. However, it was undeniable that the 2 of them had actually killed Qianhao when they joined forces. Bang! Not long after, Ning Lu and the stone beetle leader flew to Ning Yu and Zhao Lin's side. With a flick of his wrist, Ning Lu threw Qianhao heavily on the ground. Oh my god! He's still alive. Zhao Lin couldn't help but take a few steps back when she sensed the aura emanating from Qianhao. On the surface, Qianhao looked no different from being dead, but Zhao Lin knew very well that he wasn't dead. For a formidable martial artist like Qianhao, unless his head was penetrated and his soul was destroyed, it would be extremely difficult for him to die. The reason why the one-armed man died was because the stone beetle leader had pierced through his head and killed his primordial spirit. The destruction of his nascent soul meant that the one-armed man was completely dead. Since you are cultivating, only I can enjoy the good stuff. Ning Lu chuckled when he saw Ning Yu cultivating the God Emperor technique, and then he grabbed Qianhao once more before transforming into an afterimage that entered his spatial ring. Wait for me. Seeing Ning Lu enter the storage ring, The stone beetle leader hurriedly flapped its wings and followed closely behind. The stone beetle leader knew what Ning Lu was going to do. It was not a fool. It didn't matter if it was in Qianhao or the one-armed man. At their peak, they were all semisage experts. The energy contained in their bodies could only be described as terrifying. With so much energy, the stone beetle leader was sure that he could reach the Sky Supreme Realm. Even after Ning Lu and the stone beetle leader disappeared, Zhao Lin's mouth was still wide open, her face was full of confusion. After a long while, Zhao Lin returned to normal. Glancing at Ning Yu, Zhao Lin understood everything. No wonder Ning Yu made the prompt decision to cultivate. It turned out that he already knew that Ning Lu had defeated Qianhao. I wonder how to leave the crystal coffin. Zhao Lin looked around and decided to stay by Ning Yu's side. In any case, Ning Lu and the stone beetle leader were both in the storage ring, so they would definitely come out as soon as there was any danger. Zhao Lin's cultivation was only at the low-rank Earth Sovereign Realm, and she didn't want to take the risk in this unfamiliar place. Drip. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, an hour had passed. Suddenly, Ning Yu's eyes opened, and he made a grabbing motion with his right hand before tossing it out. Cut the heavens. Along with Ning Yu's roar, a huge flying sword shadow appeared and slammed into the void. Whoosh! A crisp sound rang out. The space in the sky suddenly split into two. Buzz! A terrifying devouring force emerged from the cracked void, sucking in all the air in the surroundings. Ah! Zhao Lin, who was shocked by the situation, suddenly cried out in a careless manner. That was because Zhao Lin discovered that her body was actually being pulled by the devouring power. It was ruthlessly trying to suck her into the crack. At this critical moment, Ning Yu exerted a little force in his legs and leaped far away, grabbing Zhao Lin's ankle and pulling her down. Swish! As soon as he pulled Zhao Lin down, everything in the void returned to normal. The power of the 10th form of the Emperor technique, Cut the Heavens, is so terrifying. Ning Yu casually threw Zhao Lin aside and stared at the subtle changes in the void with a grave expression. Only now did Ning Yu realize that he had underestimated the Emperor technique. The power of the 9th form of the Emperor technique was comparable to the 8th form of the Supreme 9 Purities sword skill. But the power of the 10th form of the Emperor technique, Cut the Heavens, was several times stronger than Cut the Heavens. In fact, the power of Cut the Heavens was even more terrifying than the 10th form of the Netherworld Samsara Palm, Yin Yang Palm. Ning Yu vaguely realized that the Emperor technique might not be as simple as it seemed. With the improvement of his cultivation, Ning Yu's judgment of martial arts had also increased. According to Ning Yu's judgment, the Netherworld Samsara Palm should be equivalent to a saint-level martial skill. As for whether it was a lower or middle saint-level martial skill, Ning Yu did not know. Because the Netherworld Samsara Palm had a total of 2 parts. The upper part only had 12 palm strikes, and the lower part needed to be found in the book Reincarnation Alchemy Principle. Ning Yu already knew the cultivation method of the 12 forms of the Supreme 9 Purities sword skill. Ning Yu was very clear that the Supreme 9 Purities sword skill was equivalent to a lower saint-level martial skill, and its power was extremely terrifying. At the beginning, Ning Yu thought that the Emperor technique was only a lower saint-level martial skill, and might be even weaker than the Supreme 9 Purities sword skill. But now, Ning Yu felt that based on the power of heaven cutting, the Emperor God art should at least be at the medium sacred level. The power of Cut the Heavens is already so terrifying. Why don't I try to cultivate the 11th form, Cut the Heavens? Ning Yu did as he said. He immediately sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate the 11th form of the Emperor technique. The 11th form of the Emperor technique was called Cut the Heavens. Judging from the name alone, the power of Cut the Heavens was much higher than Cut the Heavens. One was cut, while the other was cut. After cultivating for more than 10 minutes, Ning Yu immediately stopped. This was because Ning Yu found that no matter how hard he cultivated, he could not even master the slightest bit of Cut the Heavens. Is there any other way? Slightly frowning, Ning Yu decided to start with the one-armed man. After all, the 11th and 12th forms of the Emperor technique were found on the shoulder of the one-armed man. The one-armed man carried such important martial skills with him, so it was conceivable that he would also carry them with him. With a thought, Ning Yu directly sank into the storage ring, trying to bring the one-armed man out. My one-armed man. You. However, as soon as Ning Yu's perception entered the storage ring, his face was full of confusion as if he had seen a ghost. There was no trace of the one-armed man in the storage ring. No, there should be the one-armed man, but now there was only a skeleton left of the one-armed man. Next to the skeleton of the one-armed man, Ning Lu, the leader of the stone beetles, the Dark Emperor, and Furball stood side by side. What shocked Ning Yu was not the fact that they were standing next to the one-armed man, but their cultivation levels. Ning Yu clearly remembered that Ning Lu's cultivation was only at the initial phase Heavenly Sovereign Realm, while the Golem leader was only at the pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. The Dark Emperor and Furball's cultivation were even lower. But now, Ning Lu had advanced to the initial Heavenly Supreme, and the leader of the Stone Beetles had advanced from the peak 9th grade Earth Supreme to the initial Heavenly Supreme. The most shocking ones were the Dark Emperor and Furball. The Dark Emperor's cultivation had reached the peak 9th grade Earth Supreme, and he was only one step away from the half-step Heavenly Supreme Realm. Furball's cultivation was even more terrifying. Chapter 1669. Chapter 1669. Chapter 1669 To compete in talent. The previous chapter was about Ning Lu reaching the mid-stage Sky Supreme. Gulp. Sensing the terrifying auras emanating from Furball and the Dark Emperor, Ning Yu could not help but gulp. It was simply too exaggerated. Pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme and half-step Heavenly Supreme. Could it be that the heaven-devouring hound's advancement was really that fast? Whoosh. Seeing Ning Yu's shocked expression, Furball leaped into Ning Yu's arms and affectionately rubbed its little head against Ning Yu's cheek. Although he had reached the quasi-heavenly sovereign realm, Hairy Ball was still small. After rubbing its little head against Ning Yu's cheek for a while, Furball jumped onto Ning Yu's head and used its little claws to scratch at Ning Yu's hair. Ning Lu, what's going on? Ignoring Furball on his head, Ning Yu's gaze fell on Ning Lu. Without a doubt, for the Dark Emperor and the others to be able to advance to this level of cultivation, it definitely had something to do with Ning Lu. What do you mean what's going on? Isn't it good that their cultivation has increased so much? Ning Lu shrugged and said, I extracted the energy in the one-armed man's body and in Qianhao's and poured all of it into the Dark Emperor and Furball's bodies. Oh, right, I also left some energy for that stone beetle to devour. And Qianhao and the one-armed man are both half-saint experts. The energy contained within their bodies is extremely terrifying. The fact that the Dark Emperor and Hairy Ball managed to advance to their current cultivation is completely within my expectations. As expected, my ass. Ning Yu cursed. Ning Yu was very displeased with the sudden advancement of the Dark Monarch and Furball. This was not to say that Ning Yu was afraid that the Dark Sovereign and Furball's cultivation would surpass his. Rather, it was because his foundation might become unstable if his cultivation increased by so much at once. Foundation was the key. If one's foundation was not stable, their future achievements would be limited. Don't worry. The Dark Emperor and Furball are both heaven-devouring hounds, so they're more than 1,000 times stronger than you. Ning Lu curled his lips and said to Ning Yu, you're currently a first-grade Earth Sovereign. Even if I provide you with a large amount of energy, you won't be able to reach the pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign realm. I'll leave this energy for you to devour. Your cultivation is extremely low right now, and there are so many experts outside the coffin. So your cultivation has to be at least at the middle rank Earth Sovereign realm. As he spoke, Ning Lu flicked his wrist, and a fist-sized ball of energy swept toward Ning Yu. Pa. Ning Yu reacted quickly and caught the fist-sized energy steadily. After receiving the energy, Ning Yu did not devour it immediately. Instead, his gaze fell on Zhao Lin. How troublesome. Ning Lu complained. Then, he took out another ball of energy and threw it to Zhao Lin. Thank you. Zhao Lin knew how terrifying the energy was. She hurriedly caught the energy and thanked Ning Lu. I have a request for you. Ning Lu rolled his eyes and said in a solemn tone, you and Ning Yu refine the energy at the same time. I want to see whose cultivation will increase more, you or Ning Yu. This, Zhao Lin was stunned for a moment. In fact, Zhao Lin didn't keep Ninglu's energy for herself. She had other uses for it. But since Ninglu had already put it this way, Zhao Lin did not say anything else and immediately swallowed the energy. In fact, there was one thing that Zhao Lin did not tell Ningyu and the rest. In the central continent, not only was Zhao Lin talented in arrays, but her talent in martial Dao was also outstanding. Truth be told, Zhao Lin was a little unconvinced by Ningyu. Now that she had a chance to compete with Ningyu, she would naturally not give in so easily. What the F***ck? Seeing Zhao Lin swallow the entire energy ball, Ninglu directly cursed, extremely shocked. The energy contained in the energy ball that he gave Zhao Lin was enough for a 2nd grade Earth Sovereign to advance to 5th grade Earth Sovereign. Of course, it wasn't an instant advancement, but a gradual one. Zhao Lin's cultivation was at 2nd grade Earth Sovereign, so how could Ninglu not be shocked when she swallowed so much energy? What the F***ck? But Ninglu's shock had yet to come. The moment Zhao Lin swallowed the energy ball, Ningyu also opened his mouth wide and swallowed the entire energy ball into his body. If Ninglu could be said to be slightly calm when Zhao Lin swallowed the energy ball, then Ningyu swallowed the energy ball, and Ninglu couldn't stay calm at all. One must know that the energy ball that Ninglu gave to Ningyu was twice as much as the one he gave to Zhao Lin. How could a 1st grade Earth Sovereign like Ningyu bear double the amount of energy? Ningyu is blessed. He won't have any problems with this amount of energy. The Dark Emperor was not worried at all. After being with Ningyu for so long, the Dark Emperor had a deep understanding of Ningyu. Ningyu would not do anything that he wasn't confident in. Since Ningyu had swallowed so much energy, he definitely had a way to refine it. Right now, there was only one thing they needed to do, and that was to protect Ningyu. Swish, swish, swish. In the next moment, the Dark Emperor, Furball, and the leader of the stone beetles spread out and paid close attention to their surroundings. Although the one-armed man and Qianhao were defeated, they were still in the crystal coffin, which was a huge area. Who knew if there would be any danger? It was a crucial moment for Ningyu and Zhao Lin's cultivation, so it was best to be careful. Spiritual transformation art. After Ningyu swallowed the energy ball, he immediately began to circulate the spiritual transformation art to refine the energy in the energy ball. To increase his cultivation. For the current Ningyu, it had already reached a point of urgency. A 1st grade Earth Sovereign was actually pretty good for Ningyu's age. However, the enemies that Ningyu was facing were too powerful. If he did not increase his cultivation, he would only be cannon fodder in front of the enemy. So this time, Ningyu decided to raise his cultivation without restraint. Even if his foundation was unstable, he didn't care. Although Ningyu was worried that the Dark Emperor and Furball's foundation would be unstable, everything else was meaningless for him. Increasing his strength was the only thing that mattered to him. Moreover, Ningyu's soul force was at the pinnacle of the 8th grade, and he had the experience from his previous life. Even if Ningyu increased his cultivation by a few levels in a short period of time, his foundation would not be unstable. Buzz. As the spiritual transformation art circulated, the energy ball in Ningyu's body was shrinking at a terrifying speed. Every time the energy ball shrank, Ningyu's strength would increase. In just half an hour, Ningyu's cultivation had reached the pinnacle of the 1st grade, and he was only half a step away from the 2nd grade. Boom. All of a sudden, a dull sound came from Ningyu's sea of consciousness. Boom. After the dull sound, a terrifying aura surged out from Ningyu's body and soared into the sky. 2nd grade Earth Sovereign. At this moment, Ningyu's cultivation had reached the 2nd grade. Not bad. Feeling the aura coming out from his body, Ningyu nodded his head in satisfaction. Advancing from the 1st grade to the 2nd grade in half an hour, Ningyu was quite satisfied. Chapter 1670. A Special Method Rumble. Not long after Ningyu advanced to 2nd grade Earth Supreme, an aura no weaker than Ningyu's emanated from Zhao Lin. 3rd grade Earth Supreme. Sensing the aura emanating from Zhao Lin, Ningyu was slightly surprised. The difficulty of advancing from 2nd grade Earth Supreme to 3rd grade Earth Supreme was much greater than advancing from 1st grade Earth Supreme to 2nd grade Earth Supreme. How could he not be surprised that Zhao Lin's speed of advancement was almost the same as his? Zhao Lin's talent in martial Dao must be terrifying. Ningyu took a quick glance at Zhao Lin and immediately concluded that her talent in martial Dao was terrifying, extremely terrifying. Zhao Lin had already displayed her terrifying talent in array formations, and now she had displayed her terrifying talent in martial Dao. This person was terrifying. Could it be? Suddenly, Ningyu thought of a possibility. Zhao Lin's talent in martial Dao was terrifying, and so was her talent in array formations. There was an 80% chance that her talent in alchemy was terrifying. Forget it, I'd better improve my cultivation as soon as possible. Shaking his head, Ningyu threw the thought to the back of his mind. With a thought, Ningyu once again operated the spiritual transformation art and began to refine the energy in his body. Fortunately, Ningyu had cultivated the spiritual transformation art to the 9th level. Otherwise, refining the energy in his body in such a short time would be more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Ningyu made a preliminary estimate of the energy in his body. If he refined all the energy in his body, he would have an 80% chance of advancing to 5th grade Earth Supreme. As long as he could advance to 5th grade Earth Supreme, combined with the Emperor God Art, Supreme 9 Purities Sword Art, and Netherworld Samsara Palm, Ningyu was confident that he could compete with a Sky Supreme. Buzz. Frantically operating the spiritual transformation art, Ningyu devoted himself to cultivation. Time passed, second by second. In the blink of an eye, another hour had passed. After an hour of cultivation, Ningyu's aura had reached the pinnacle 2nd grade Earth Sovereign Realm, just a little bit away from reaching the 3rd grade Earth Sovereign Realm. As for Zhao Lin, her aura was also terrifying, reaching the pinnacle 3rd grade Earth Sovereign Realm. Dark Emperor, between Ningyu and Zhao Lin, who do you think will be able to advance first? On the other side, Ninglu lightly touched the Dark Emperor and asked. Needless to say, it must be Ningyu. The Dark Emperor was very confident in Ningyu. He knew that Ningyu had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Furthermore, Ningyu was trying to break through to 3rd grade Earth Sovereign, while Zhao Lin was trying to break through to 4th grade Earth Sovereign. There was no reason for Ningyu to lose to Zhao Lin. Hehe, I don't think so. Ninglu lightly smiled. Even if Zhao Lin becomes a 5th grade Earth Sovereign, Ningyu will not become a 3rd grade Earth Sovereign. Ninglu's words confused the Dark Emperor. Even Furball was staring at Ninglu with wide eyes, a puzzled look on his face. Let's see. Ninglu crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled mysteriously. Trying to act mysterious. The Dark Emperor rolled his eyes and looked around at his surroundings. Rumble. However, as soon as the Dark Emperor shifted his gaze, a surge of aura soared into the sky. The Dark Emperor's gaze, which had just shifted away, hurriedly turned back. Holy crap! The Dark Emperor was stunned by what he saw. Ninglu was right. The first to advance was not Ningyu, but Zhao Lin. Zhao Lin's cultivation had reached the 4th grade Earth Sovereign Realm, while Ningyu was still a pinnacle 2nd grade Earth Sovereign Realm. What's going on? The Dark Emperor looked at Ninglu and asked. In the Dark Emperor's view, it was unprecedented that Ningyu's cultivation speed was slower than Zhao Lin's. The Dark Emperor had witnessed Ningyu's talent in the martial Dao long ago. His monstrous cultivation speed allowed him to advance from the true martial realm to the utmost exalted realm in just a year or two. If news of this were to spread, many people's jaws would drop. How could the Dark Emperor not be surprised that someone as terrifying as Ningyu had met his match? Ningyu is compressing his energy. He doesn't want to advance step by step, but in the most risky way, Ninglu said. What do you mean? The Dark Emperor was confused. It's very simple. If he advances step by step, Ningyu might face a situation where his foundation is unstable. He's taking a risk to advance. Although the degree of danger is relatively high, as long as he can advance smoothly, this situation of his foundation being unstable will not exist at all. Ninglu explained. In fact, Ninglu was very surprised to know that Ningyu was using this method to advance. It was very risky. The success rate was only around 50%. However, he had to admit that Ningyu's method was very reliable. However, Ninglu was a little curious. The reason why he knew about this method was because a powerful cultivator comprehended the Tao under the world tree a long time ago. At that time, that martial artist had used this method used by Ningyu, and his cultivation had suddenly risen by several large levels. Now that Ningyu knew about this method, Ninglu was naturally curious. Although it was strange, Ninglu still hoped that Ningyu could advance smoothly. The flow of time seemed to slow down at this moment. An hour later. Rumble. An aura was released from Zhao Lin's body. 5th grade Earth Sovereign. After a few hours of refining energy, Zhao Lin successfully advanced to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign realm. After advancing to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign realm, Zhao Lin didn't have time to be excited. She immediately sat down and started to consolidate her cultivation. Zhao Lin didn't understand the method that Ningyu used, so she had to consolidate her cultivation if she wanted to stabilize her foundation. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for her to advance to the 6th grade Earth Sovereign realm. The process of consolidating her cultivation was not only slow, but also painful. In order to completely stabilize her cultivation base, Zhao Lin's entire forehead was covered in beads of sweat. Pa, pa, pa. Beads of sweat flowed down from Zhao Lin's forehead and fell to the ground, making popping sounds. Forget it, I'll help you. Ninglu looked at Zhao Lin. Then, he looked at Ningyu again and moved to sit cross-legged behind Zhao Lin. Ninglu quickly stretched out his hands and placed them on Zhao Lin's back. Kai. Traces of energy flowed into Zhao Lin's body through Ninglu's palms and quickly helped her consolidate her cultivation. Half an hour later, Ninglu suddenly exerted force and slapped Zhao Lin's back. Puff. A mouthful of black blood spurted out from Zhao Lin's mouth. Phew. Zhao Lin let out a long breath after the blood was spurted out. After checking the condition of her body, Zhao Lin hurriedly thanked Ninglu. Thank you, senior. Although Ninglu seemed to be only 5 or 6 years old, in Zhao Lin's heart, Ninglu was a senior. It was an old monster pretending to be young. Don't thank me. Chapter 1671. Chapter 1671. Chapter 1671 Scram. Ningyu. Zhao Lin was taken aback at first, then she shifted her gaze to Ningyu. Rumble. However, just as Zhao Lin's gaze landed on Ningyu, Ningyu's body erupted with a shocking aura. What? Feeling the aura erupting from Ningyu's body, including Zhao Lin, even Ninglu and the Dark Emperor, they all revealed extremely surprised expressions. 5th grade Earth Supreme Realm. Ningyu's cultivation rose from 2nd grade Earth Sovereign to 5th grade Earth Sovereign. Impossible. After the shock, Ninglu stood dumbfounded on the spot, his face filled with disbelief. In fact, Ninglu's shock was different from Zhao Lin's and Dark Emperor's. Zhao Lin and the Dark Emperor were shocked because Ningyu had risen from the 2nd grade Earth Sovereign Realm to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. It was an increase of 3 levels. Ninglu's shock was that Ningyu had only advanced 3 levels. The reason Ninglu had such an idea was that the energy ball he had given to Ningyu contained a terrifying amount of energy, twice as much as the energy ball he had given to Zhao Lin. In Ninglu's view, Ningyu should have reached the 6th or 7th grade Earth Sovereign Realm, at the very least, since he had devoured so much energy. In the end, Ningyu was only a 5th grade Earth Sovereign. Eat my fist. Just at this moment, the Dark Queen stomped on the ground and shot out. Whoosh. The Dark Emperor was very fast, so fast that he arrived in front of Ningyu in the blink of an eye. Raising its front claws, the Dark Emperor clawed at Ningyu's chest. Didn't you say you were going to exchange blows with me? Why are you scratching me with your claws? The Dark Emperor's actions caused Ningyu to roll his eyes. Then, Ningyu clenched his right fist and clashed with the Dark Emperor's claw. Bang! A crisp sound rang out. The Dark Emperor's body was blasted away. On the other hand, Ningyu was standing there unscathed. He didn't even move his feet. I can't believe it. The Dark Emperor immediately crawled up from the ground and ran towards Ningyu, then looked at Ningyu as if he was a monster and exclaimed, "You're only a 5th grade Earth Sovereign, so why is your fighting strength so powerful?" The Dark Emperor was shocked to the extreme. His cultivation was at the pinnacle of the 9th grade Earth Sovereign realm, and his overall combat prowess was comparable to an initial Heavenly Sovereign. Ning Yu was only a 5th grade Earth Supreme, but he was able to repel him with a single punch. If that's the case, wouldn't that mean that Ning Yu could confront Heavenly Sovereigns? No one would believe that a 5th grade Earth Sovereign could fight against a Heavenly Sovereign. Who said that a 5th grade Earth Sovereign can't be so powerful? Ning Yu rolled his eyes at the Dark Emperor. You've been in seclusion for so long, have you gained control of the Sky-Devouring Scepter? The Sky-Devouring Scepter was something that he had obtained from the giant Shield City. The Sky-Devouring Scepter was the 3rd supreme treasure of the Sky-Devouring Hound clan. If the Dark Emperor could gain control of the scepter, then his fighting strength would rise by several levels. That's for sure. Raising the Heaven-Devouring Scepter, the Dark Emperor raised his head and said proudly, "The reason why I lost to you was because I didn't use the Heaven-Devouring Scepter. If I had used the Heaven-Devouring Scepter, I could have easily defeated you. Then, tell me, can you confront a pinnacle Heavenly Sovereign with the scepter?" Ning Yu asked as he looked at the Dark Emperor. "This is a little difficult." The Dark Emperor hesitated. "Stop bragging. If you can gain control of the scepter, then your overall fighting strength can confront a pinnacle Heavenly Sovereign." Ning Yu waved his hand, signaling the Dark Emperor to stop his nonsense. If a heaven-defying treasure like the Sky-Devouring Scepter was fully unleashed, it could confront a pinnacle Heavenly Sovereign. According to Ning Yu's judgment, there's a high possibility that the Sky-Devouring Scepter had exceeded the Monarch realm. After all, it was the 3rd supreme treasure of the Sky-Devouring Hound clan. If it was only a Monarch realm, then it would be too shabby. Stop arguing. What should we do now? Seeing that Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor wanted to continue their argument, Zhao Lin spoke out. "Russell." Zhao Lin's words had instantly caused the gazes of Ning Yu and the rest to fall onto her face. Being stared at by Ning Yu and the rest, Zhao Lin felt a burning sensation on her face. "What I mean is that Hu Wentian and the 10 nine-tailed foxes are still outside the crystal coffin. It's not a good idea for us to stay inside." Zhao Lin's gaze shifted. She didn't dare to look at Ning Yu and the rest. "Don't worry. As long as the crystal coffin isn't opened, Hu Wentian and the rest won't be in danger." Ning Yu said, "What we need to do now is to find a way to retrieve the crystal coffin." Retrieve the crystal coffin? Zhao Lin was puzzled. She had no idea what Ning Yu was going to do. Ignoring Zhao Lin's puzzled expression, Ning Yu pulled out An Qianhao from his interspatial ring. Although An Qianhao's energy had been devoured by Ning Lu and the rest, he was still alive. His memories were still there. From An Qianhao's memories, Ning Yu believed that he would be able to obtain some useful information. "Ning Lu, is there any way to devour An Qianhao's memories?" Ning Yu didn't waste time with Ning Lu and went straight to the point. Shaking his head, Ning Lu said, "An Qianhao is a half-saint realm expert. If we rashly devour his memories, it's extremely likely that we'll suffer a backlash. Tell me, what benefits do you want?" How could Ning Yu not know what Ning Lu was trying to do? As the World Tree, Ning Lu definitely had a way to devour An Qianhao's memories. The reason Ning Lu hadn't done so was because he wanted to gain some benefits from An Qianhao. "Hey, you know me well." Ning Lu chuckled, and then he stretched out his palm and said, 1,000,000 Saint-grade origin crystals. "So long as you give me 1,000,000 Saint-grade origin crystals, I'll immediately devour An Qianhao's memories." F***CK. Ning Yu almost fell to the ground when he heard Ning Lu's exorbitant demand. 1,000,000 Saint-grade origin crystals? To think that Ning Lu actually dared to say such a thing. Currently, Ning Yu only had 1,000,000 Saint-grade origin crystals. If Ning Lu asked for all of them, Ning Yu would definitely not agree. 100,000 at most. Ning Yu stretched out a finger and said, "Forget it." 900,000, Ning Lu said. 200,000. 800,000. 300,000. This is my bottom line. 700,000, not a single piece less. You win. 500,000 Saint-grade origin crystals. It's a deal. As he spoke, Ning Yu took out a storage pouch and tossed it to Ning Lu. "Deal." After receiving the storage pouch and confirming that there were 500,000 Saint-grade origin crystals in it, Ninglu directly arrived before Enchantment and stretched out his right hand, placing it on Enchantment's head. Ninglu's palm had just touched Enchantment's head when Enchantment let out a hysterical shriek. The shriek didn't continue for long. Done. Chapter 1672. Chapter 1672. Chapter 1672 Fusion Scram. Ningyu kicked Ninglu angrily. Devouring memories required 500,000 Saint-grade crystals, while transferring memories required another 500,000 Saint-grade crystals. After the sapling transformed into a human, it was indeed insatiable. However, Ningyu needed Enchantment's memories. In the next few minutes, he argued with Enchantment again. After an argument, Ningyu used 100,000 Saint-grade origin crystals to exchange for Enchantment's memories. Ninglu placed his palm on Ningyu's head, and a huge amount of memories flowed into Ningyu's mind. Ningyu guarded his mind, keeping the useful memories and throwing the useless ones to the back of his mind. Even so, Ningyu was sweating profusely. Enchantment was an expert at the half-saint realm, so it was obvious how enormous the memories of a half-saint were. Fortunately, I have advanced to the 5th grade Earth Sovereign realm. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to digest Enchantment's memories. Ningyu took a deep breath and began to organize the additional memories in his mind. After half an hour of organizing, Ningyu categorized Enchantment's memories into a few parts. The first part was Enchantment's experiences when he advanced to the half-saint realm, and Ningyu kept these experiences for reference. The second part was related to the crystal coffin. Through Enchantment's memories, Ningyu found out that the crystal coffin was a magic treasure that had existed since the primordial times, and it was at least at the saint rank or even higher. The third part was about the demon spirit realm. The Yin family was one of the 9 major powers in the devil spirit realm. On the other hand, Enchantment was the war god of the Yin clan. The reason why Enchantment was trapped here was because he wanted to investigate the secret of the crystal coffin. It was rumored that the crystal coffin could penetrate through the barriers of space and reach a higher plane. It seems like there is no way to control the crystal coffin. Ningyu shook his head slowly, almost dismissing the idea of controlling the crystal coffin. Generally speaking, with Ningyu's cultivation, it was impossible for him to control a magic treasure that could penetrate through space barriers. Forget it. I should think of a way to leave the crystal coffin first. Since he couldn't control the crystal coffin, Ningyu naturally wouldn't waste any more time. Leaving the crystal coffin was the most important thing right now. Shio. However, right when Ningyu was thinking about how to open the crystal coffin, a cold light suddenly shot out from Enchantment's mind, and it charged towards the depths of the crystal coffin at an extremely shocking speed. It's Enchantment's soul. Zhao Lin exclaimed, "We must not let his primordial spirit escape, otherwise there will be endless troubles in the future." Actually, Ningyu didn't need Zhao Lin to say it. If a half-saint primordial spirit could find a suitable host, it would very likely be able to reach its current level in the future. Moreover, Enchantment was the devil spirit realms and family's war god, so Ningyu couldn't let his primordial spirit escape. Essence Soul Battle Body. With a thought, Ningyu took out the 10,000 spirit sacred flag and released the primordial spirit battle physique inside. The Essence Soul battle physique had an absolute advantage against primordial spirits. Stone Beetle Leader, Dark Emperor, the two of you go and help the Essence Soul battle physique. You must let the Essence Soul battle physique devour Enchantment's primordial spirit. Although the Essence Soul battle physique had an absolute advantage against primordial spirits, it was better to be safe than sorry. Ningyu still got the Stone Beetle Leader and Dark Emperor to help. After devouring the primordial spirit for a period of time, the Essence Soul battle physique's battle strength had already reached the Earth Supreme realm. Ningyu concluded that as long as the Essence Soul battle physique devoured Enchantment's primordial spirit, its battle strength would rise to a terrifying level. What a pity. At this moment, Ningyu felt that it was a pity. After all, the one-armed man's primordial spirit was killed and devoured by the Stone Beetle Leader. For some reason, the Stone Beetle Leader didn't seem to have any changes after devouring the one-armed man's primordial spirit. Hey, hey, hey. Ningyu, why don't you want me to help? Seeing that Ningyu didn't want him to help, Ninglu couldn't help grumbling, I'm quite experienced in dealing with primordial spirits. Ningyu rolled his eyes and distanced himself from Ninglu. He couldn't be bothered to talk to Ninglu. With Ninglu's character, he would definitely demand an exorbitant price if he went to beg him. Casually finding a place to sit down, Ningyu quietly waited for the Dark Emperor and the rest to return. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Not long later, the Dark Emperor and the Stone Beetle leader were at the front, while the Essence Soul Battle Physique was at the back. The three of them were like a gust of wind as they swiftly appeared before Ningyu. Ninth grade Earth Sovereign? Sensing the aura emanating from the Essence Soul Battle Physique, Ningyu's expression was as interesting as it could be. In Ningyu's view, even if he devoured the primordial spirit of a half-saint, the Essence Soul Battle Physique's fighting strength would only reach the 7th grade Earth Sovereign. But from the looks of it now, he was wrong, ridiculously wrong. The fighting strength of the Essence Soul Battle Physique had reached the 9th grade Earth Sovereign realm. Damn it, looks like the body of a half-saint expert is full of treasures. Ningyu couldn't help cursing. Right. Suddenly, Ningyu thought of something and immediately shifted his gaze to Enchanhao. Since the body of a half-saint expert was full of treasures, why not merge the Essence Soul Battle Physique with Enchanhao? That way, the Essence Soul Battle Physique would be able to possess a physical body of a half-saint in the future. In terms of strength, the Essence Soul Battle Physique could rely on its ability to restrain the primordial spirit and the toughness of its physical body to confront a heavenly supreme. What are you doing? But when Ningyu turned his head, he saw a scene that made him furious. The dark golden branch above Ninglu's head flew out and pierced Enchanhao's left arm. Enchanhao's left arm was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Obviously, Ninglu was absorbing the remaining vitality of Enchanhao. Wait. Ningyu hurriedly said, leave Enchanhao's corpse to me, and I'll give you the remaining 1 million saint-grade origin crystals. Ninglu frowned his brows and felt that it was a little unbelievable. This wasn't Ningyu's style. Exchanging 400,000 sacred-grade essence crystals for a corpse, Ningyu's head wouldn't have rusted, right? But when Ninglu saw the Essence Soul Battle Physique, he instantly understood. Deal. Without any nonsense, Ninglu kicked Enchanhao's corpse towards the Essence Soul Battle Physique and extended his hand towards Ningyu. Here. Ningyu handed the remaining 400,000 saint-grade origin crystals to Ninglu and directed the Essence Soul Battle Physique into Enchanhao's body. Buzz. Buzz. The Essence Soul Battle Physique turned into an afterimage and entered Enchanhao's body. Go. Ningyu forced out a drop of blood essence and injected it into Enchanhao's head. Master. The Essence Soul Battle Physique was an existence formed from the fusion of many essence spirits and soul forces. Initially, its consciousness was very weak. However, after devouring Enchanhao's essence spirit and that drop of blood essence from Ningyu, a new consciousness was born in the Essence Soul Battle Physique. The new consciousness was centered around Enchanhao, but there was a huge difference. All in all, the Essence Soul Battle Physique already had a consciousness and was fused perfectly with Enchanhao's body. Seems like this sage's arm can be put to use. Chapter 1673. Chapter 1673. Chapter 1673 Sway. Although his primordial spirit battle physique's cultivation was only at the 9th grade Earth Supreme Realm, he could already contend with ordinary initial heavenly sovereigns after occupying Enchanhao's body. However, Ningyu was obviously not very satisfied with this result. In Ningyu's view, as long as he could connect the saint's arm to the primordial spirit battle physique, then the fighting power of the primordial spirit battle physique would definitely reach the middle phase heavenly sovereign realm. Catcher. Ningyu was not an indecisive person. Without any hesitation, he immediately attached the sage's arm to the left arm of his Essence Soul Battle body. Kai. In order to make the sage's arm perfectly fit with the Essence Soul Battle body, Ningyu released all the soul power in his body and did not dare to be careless. About half an hour later, Ningyu slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and an excited expression appeared on his face. Fortunately, The saint's arm was suppressed by the crystal coffin, causing its aura to drop to the 5th grade Earth Supreme Realm. Otherwise, with the current strength of Ningyu's soul energy, he wouldn't be able to reattach the primordial spirit battle physique. Thank you, Master. The primordial spirit battle body cupped its fists and knelt on one knee in front of Ningyu. It said in a deep voice, I will definitely listen to Master's instructions. If Master asks me to go east, I will definitely not go west. As long as Master, alright. I didn't expect you to know how to flatter someone the moment you gained consciousness. Ningyu rolled his eyes. Go into the storage ring first. You can't come out without my permission. Yes. The primordial spirit battle body responded. Then, it flashed and went into the storage ring. Wait, put this on. Seeing that the primordial spirit battle physique was about to enter the storage ring, Ningyu shook his wrist and hurriedly tossed the holy myriad ghost flag into the primordial spirit battle physique. Although the rank of the 10,000 spirit sacred flag was not low, it was no longer necessary for Ningyu. After all, the primordial soul battle body's combat prowess had reached the mid-stage Sky Supreme level. In the future, if he encountered any Essence Soul or Soul attacks, he could use his Essence Soul battle body to deal with them. In terms of martial Dao strength, the primordial spirit battle physique's cultivation was at the pinnacle of the 9th grade Earth Supreme Realm, and its combat prowess was comparable to a mid-heavenly Supreme Realm. In terms of the primordial spirit, not even a pinnacle heavenly sovereign could escape the pursuit of the primordial spirit battle physique. Catcher. The primordial spirit battle physique immediately stopped when it saw the 10,000 spirit sacred flag flying toward it. It opened its mouth and swallowed the 10,000 spirit sacred flag. Burp. After swallowing the holy flag of 10,000 ghosts, the nascent soul battle body burped before disregarding the astonished expressions of the Dark Emperor and the others and disappearing into his storage ring. Gulp. Only when the soul battle physique vanished did the Dark Emperor gulp and say, Ningyu, isn't this soul battle physique a little too terrifying? What surprised the Dark Emperor was not that the Essence Soul battle body had swallowed the 10,000 ghosts sacred flag. Instead, the Essence Soul battle body possessed an independent consciousness. The Dark Emperor knew how terrifying an Essence Soul battle body with an independent consciousness was. The Dark Emperor knew that even though he was a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign, his primordial spirit battle physique was also at the 9th grade Earth Sovereign realm. However, if the two of them fought, the primordial spirit battle body would definitely defeat him. What has his terror got to do with you? Do you want to spar with him? Ningyu asked as he looked at the Dark Emperor. No, I don't want to spar with him. The Dark Emperor immediately shook his head and said, I'm the great sky-devouring hound, and is only a primordial spirit battle body. I won't lower myself to his level. Rumble. As soon as the Dark Emperor finished his words, the entire crystal coffin began to tremble. The trembling grew more intense. What's going on? The faces of Ningyu and the rest changed drastically. According to the frequency of the trembling, there was a high chance that it would explode soon. The crystal coffin was a terrifying artifact. If it exploded, it would be impossible for Ningyu and the rest to survive. We have to leave this place before the crystal coffin explode. Ningyu immediately made the decision to blast the crystal coffin open with brute force. Although he knew that it was a stupid idea, Ningyu did not have the luxury of time to think about it. If they couldn't leave before the crystal coffin exploded, they would definitely die. Heaven slashing. Ningyu gathered the essence energy in his body on his wrist and struck out. Boom. A gigantic flying sword phantom instantly soared into the sky and exploded in midair. The terrifying devouring power swallowed all the air in the surroundings. Unfortunately, even if Ningyu executed heaven slashing, he was still unable to break the crystal coffin. Ninglu, give me the black dragon sword. Although heaven slashing did not break the crystal coffin, Ningyu did not give up. He wanted to borrow the black dragon sword to execute the supreme 9 purities sword art. The black dragon sword was the artifact that Qianhao used. There was a 5-clawed black dragon on it, and there was also the black dragon sword chi inside. Heaven slashing was unable to break the crystal coffin, but it did not mean that the supreme 9 purities sword art could not. Here. Ning Lu was well aware of their current situation. Without hesitation, he immediately threw the Black Dragon Sword to Ning Yu. Pa. Catching the Black Dragon Sword, Ning Yu forced out a drop of essence blood and entered the Black Dragon Sword along with a wisp of his soul power. As Ning Lu had erased the imprint that An Qianhao had left in the Black Dragon Sword, Ning Yu could easily control the Black Dragon Sword. Birth Sword Wave. Ning Yu wielded the Black Dragon Sword and slashed out a terrifying sword wave in the air. Kai Kai. The sword wave rubbed against the air and emitted a hissing sound. However, what happened next made Ning Yu a little dumbfounded. The birth sword wave was indeed powerful, and it was complemented by the Black Dragon Sword Qi. However, the crystal coffin did not break. Instead, it shook more and more violently. Ning Lu, Dark Emperor, Rock Beetle Leader, Furball, Zhao Lin, come over and help me. We must break the crystal coffin today. Ning Yu gritted his teeth and waved the Black Dragon Sword again. Don't mess around. At this moment, a powerful voice suddenly rang out in this area. Swoosh. Following that, a black figure suddenly appeared in front of Ning Yu and the others. Senior. Seeing the sudden appearance of the black-clothed martial artist, Ning Yu's mouth opened slightly, his face full of surprise. The black-clothed martial artist was none other than the mysterious powerhouse in the Tower of Ascension. When entering the Saint Grade Yuan crystal mine, Ning Yu had tried to contact the black-clothed martial artist. Unfortunately, no matter how Ning Yu tried, he was unable to contact the black-clothed martial artist. Who could have expected that the black-clothed martial artist would appear at the most dangerous moment? You guys leave first. After the black-clothed martial artist appeared, he did not waste words with Ning Yu and the others. The black-clothed martial artist drew a line in the air with his right hand, and a crack immediately appeared in the space. It was obvious that passing through this spatial crack would allow one to leave the crystal coffin. Senior. Ning Yu looked at the black-clothed martial artist, revealing a grateful expression. The current situation was already very clear. If the black-clothed martial artist did not appear, Ning Yu and the others would definitely be trapped in the crystal coffin. Now that the black-clothed martial artist appeared, not only could they leave the crystal coffin, but they could also preserve their combat strength. One had to know that there were many powerhouses eyeing covetously outside the crystal coffin. Chapter 1674. Take advantage of the situation, don't be so wishy-washy. Hurry up and get lost. The black-clothed cultivator impatiently waved his hand at Ning Yu and said in a deep voice, "Remember what you promised me. I'll leave the little girl in the Yuzuan pagoda to you. If I find out that she's been wronged, I'll definitely take your life. Senior, don't worry. Even if I die, I won't let her suffer the slightest grievance." Ning Yu looked at the black-clothed cultivator and nodded solemnly. He would definitely repay the debt of saving his life. Moreover, this was not the first time the black-clothed martial artist had helped him. Protecting the little girl in the pagoda of Yuzuan, Ning Yu was duty-bound. The black-clothed cultivator's tone softened slightly as he said, "It's not that I'm pressuring you, but the background of that little girl in the Tower of Yuzuan is simply too shocking. If anything happens to her, the consequences are not something you can bear." In the next moment, the black-clad cultivator flicked his sleeves and tossed a jade bottle to Ning Yu. In the jade bottle, there were 3 drops of red blood. These 3 drops are true dragon blood. Each drop can temporarily raise your strength by a large level. After saying this, the black-clothed cultivator waved his hand. Immediately, a terrifying gust of wind blew, blowing Ning Yu and the others into the spatial crack. Outside the crystal coffin, Jiao Zhengde and Di Feng had stopped long ago. As the crystal coffin shook, Jiao Zhengde and Di Feng's gazes landed on it. No one dared to breathe loudly. All their attention was focused on the crystal coffin, fearing that they would be too slow when the crystal coffin was opened. I wonder how Ning Yu is doing. Among the crowd, Hu Wentian was the most nervous one. He had brought 10 nine-tailed foxes from Foxman Valley here. If Ning Yu and the others died in the crystal coffin, then his fate would be sealed. Although he wouldn't die, he would definitely become the target of public criticism. Even now, All the cultivators in the Great Hall had begun to distance themselves from him. Gao Zhengde led a group of warriors to form a camp. 100-armed Devil led a group of warriors to form another camp. Imperial Peak also led a group of warriors to form another camp. Only Hu Wentian led 5 nine-tailed demon foxes to form a camp. Initially, when Hu Wentian entered the Saint Grade Yuan crystal mine, he brought 10 nine-tailed demon foxes with him. However, after a series of battles, only 5 of the 10 nine-tailed demon foxes remained. If there was another battle, the remaining 5 nine-tailed demon foxes would definitely die. They're out. Suddenly, a martial artist pointed at the crystal coffin and shouted. This martial artist's voice pulled Hu Wentian back from his thoughts. Huala. He looked in the direction of the voice. The space above the crystal coffin suddenly split open. Then, several figures dashed out from the crack. Ningyu. Seeing the figures coming out of the crack, all the cultivators in the hall widened their eyes in disbelief. However, this shock was short-lived. Ha ha ha, Ningyu, I want you to die. Imperial Peak, who was closest to Ningyu, lifted his head and laughed maniacally. His body was like a sharp sword as he punched at Ningyu's head. Imperial Peak's idea was simple. He wanted to kill Ningyu. After pondering for a period of time, Imperial Peak knew why his plan had failed. It was obvious that the plan had failed because Ningyu was here. Imperial Peak vented all his hatred on Ningyu. You're still alive this time. As he got closer to Ningyu, Imperial Peak's expression became more and more ferocious. However, before Imperial Peak's fist could land on Ningyu's head, the space beside Ningyu suddenly split open. A figure stood in front of Ningyu. The figure threw a punch and it collided with Di Feng's fist. Crack! The two fists collided. The sound of bones breaking resounded. Then, everyone saw two figures retreating rapidly. What? This is impossible. Who is he? The sudden change caused everyone's expressions to change drastically. The reason why everyone was shocked was that the development of the situation was different from what they had imagined. Ningyu wasn't among the two figures that were sent flying. One was Imperial Peak and the other was a stranger. Grade 9 Earth Sovereign? After stabilizing himself, Imperial Peak sensed the cultivation base of the martialist beside Ningyu and was instantly dumbfounded. What was wrong with this world? He was a pinnacle heavenly supreme, yet he couldn't even finish off a Grade 9 Earth Sovereign with 50% of his strength. If this matter were to spread out, where would he put his face? War. War Godden. In the hall, besides Imperial Peak, the other two were even more shocked. The 100-armed ghost demon and the fat old man. The two of them were in the demon spirit realm. Their objective in entering the Saint Grade crystal mine vein was to save Enchantment. Now that Enchantment was standing before them and seemed to have a good relationship with Ningyu, how could they not be shocked? How could they not be shocked? Oh, right. How could I forget about this? Seeing the changes in the expressions of the 100-armed ghost demon and the fat old man, Ningyu had a countermeasure in his heart. Whether it was the 100-armed ghost demon or the fat old man, they definitely had a trump card. If he could make use of their respect for Enchantment and make them become enemies with Imperial Peak, it would be a good strategy. Ningyu immediately sent a voice transmission to the primordial spirit battle physique, telling him what to do next. As the consciousness of the primordial spirit battle physique wasn't very stable, Ningyu had to explain for a dozen seconds before the primordial spirit battle physique understood. Damn it, you're good at bootlicking, but why are you so stupid? Ningyu broke into a cold sweat. These dozen seconds could be the most difficult time for Ningyu. Firstly, he had to explain to the primordial spirit battle physique. Secondly, he had to guard against the sudden attack from the 100-armed ghost demon and Imperial Peak. Both of you, come here. The primordial spirit battle physique took a step forward and pointed at the 100-armed ghost demon and the fat old man. He said in a deep voice, "Why didn't the family send anyone but you two small fries?" As he spoke, the primordial spirit battle physique transferred all the energy in his body to his left arm, which revealed a terrifying aura. Pest. Although the aura of the primordial spirit battle physique's left arm disappeared in a flash, It still made the faces of the martial artists in the hall change and they gasped. The aura of a sage. The martial artists who could survive until now weren't stupid and they all had some skills. They knew very well that the aura that the primordial spirit battle physique's left arm gave out was the aura of a sage and not a half-sage. An family is preparing to attack the other big regions. So they sent us to save you. The 100-armed ghost demon and the fat old man stuttered when they felt the aura of a sage. Chapter 1675. However, there were exceptions to everything. Di Feng stared at the left arm of the primordial spirit combat body and felt that something was amiss. Di Feng felt a familiar aura from the left arm of the primordial spirit combat body. One-armed man. That's right. Di Feng felt the aura of one-armed man. Di Feng knew that one-armed man was confronting a demonic spirit realm expert in the crystal coffin. As one-armed man had the arm of a sage, Di Feng didn't believe that one-armed man would lose. Could Ningyu be from demonic spirit realm too? Di Feng swept a glance at Ningyu and his heart sank to the bottom. If things were really as he thought, then the one-armed hero would be in grave danger. Humph. This matter, when I return to the Yin family, I will naturally ask. On the other side, the primordial spirit combat body snorted and said, "Kill Di Feng for me." Kill Di Feng? The 100-armed ghost demon and the short and fat old man were stunned and looked at the primordial spirit combat body in confusion. The two of them were confused. Wasn't Qianhao a sage? If a sage wanted to kill a peak sky supreme, he could do it with just a flick of his finger. Why did Qianhao want to use them to kill Di Feng? Could it be that the Qianhao in front of them was a fake Qianhao? The 100-armed ghost demon and the short and fat old man were cautious. They didn't attack Di Feng immediately but started to fight with the primordial spirit combat body. I'm only a late-stage Sky Supreme and the short and fat old man is only a middle-stage Sky Supreme. Even if we join forces, we won't be able to kill Di Feng. The 100-armed ghost demon said, "Godden, please take action and bring Di Feng to justice." Yeah, Battle Godden, you're the battle god of the Yin clan. It's easy for you to kill that pinnacle heavenly sovereign from Imperial Peak. The short and plump elder added. Are you doubting me? The primordial spirit combat body's eyes turned cold as he berated. We wouldn't dare to. We only want God of War and to take action and get rid of Imperial Peak. The 100-armed ghost demon and the short and fat old man said in unison, as long as we get rid of Imperial Peak, all the elixirs in the crystal coffin will belong to demon spirit realm. Voila! The words of the 100-armed devil and the stout old man caused the atmosphere in the hall to become tense. Now that things had come to this, Jiao Zhengde and the others had cast aside their former enmity and chosen to stand on the same side. Even Emperor Feng came to Jiao Zhengde's side and fought alongside him. Kill. The primordial spirit glared at the 100-armed ghost and the short and fat elder. Then, his figure flashed and he dashed towards Imperial Peak. What should we do? The short and plump old man looked at the 100-armed devil and asked when he saw Qianhao charging towards Imperial Peak. Wait. The 100-armed devil crossed his arms in front of his chest and spat out the word wait. Although the 100-armed devil felt that the person in front of her was a fake Qianhao, she had no proof. Only by observing Qianhao's fighting style would they be able to determine whether Qianhao was real or not. If Qianhao was real, she would naturally choose to help. If Qianhao was fake, she would even help Emperor Feng and the others to deal with the fake Qianhao. Kill. It was a pity. The development of the situation was completely out of the 100-armed devil's expectation. Before the primordial spirit could reach Emperor Feng, he turned his head and dashed towards her and the short and plump old man. The change obviously caught the 100-armed devil by surprise. The 100-armed devil didn't run away. Let's attack together. He isn't a sage. It's only his left arm that gives out the aura of a sage. As long as we attack together, we can definitely kill him easily. Emperor Feng took the lead while Jiao Zhengde and the others followed closely behind. Many experts took action and launched a powerful attack on the primordial spirit. As the primordial spirit was running towards the direction of the 100-armed devil and the short and plump old man, the 100-armed devil and the short and plump old man naturally became the target of everyone's attack. Rumble. There were all kinds of spells in the hall. D***it. Hurry up and stop. Don't let him. The 100-armed devil was upset to be besieged by everyone out of the blue. She hurried to explain. However, Emperor Feng and the others were already raging and they couldn't listen to the 100-armed devil's explanation. The more the 100-armed devil explained, the angrier they got and the more they wanted to kill the 100-armed devil. Fight. The 100-armed devil and the short and plump old man judged the situation and felt that it was impractical to beg for mercy. They could only fight with their lives to have a chance of survival. Rumble. However, just as the 100-armed devil and the short and plump old man wanted to fight with their lives, there was a rumble from the crystal coffin nearby. The rumble was getting louder and louder. It caused all the warriors in the hall to stop. Everyone fixed their eyes on the crystal coffin and didn't dare to be negligent. At this moment, everyone had the same thought. As long as the crystal coffin was opened, everyone would rush forward to snatch the treasures and elixir pills. At such a tense moment, some of the warriors communicated telepathically to discuss cooperation. Rumble. The crystal coffin didn't shake for long. 3 minutes later, the void above the crystal coffin cracked open. The crystal coffin turned into a shadow and flew into the crack. What? Seeing the crystal coffin fly away, all the warriors in the hall, except for Ningyu and the Dark Emperor, screamed. Swoosh. Swoosh. Suddenly, 2 pinnacle sky sovereigns charged out and tried to pull the crystal coffin out of the crack. Taking a closer look, the 2 pinnacle heavenly sovereigns were Tang Mo and Tang Jiyu. Tang Mo's upper body was in the crack and Tang Jiyu was holding on tightly to his lower body. Brother, did you grab the crystal coffin or not? Tang Jiyu asked as he held on to Tang Mo. Tang Jiyu asked the same question that the warriors in the hall wanted to ask. Jiao Zhengde and the rest stared at Tang Mo anxiously as they wanted to hear good news from him. Got it. Hurry up and pull me out, Tang Mo said anxiously. All right. Tang Jiyu understood and hurriedly pulled Tang Mo out. However, no matter how hard Tang Jiyu tried, he couldn't pull Tang Mo out. It was as though there was a terrifying suction force that was pulling Tang Mo. What are you waiting for? Come and help. Tang Jiyu turned around and shouted at Jiao Zhengde and Di Feng in a hurry. Swoosh. Jiao Zhengde, Di Feng and the rest looked at each other and dashed out. They pulled Tang Jiyu and tried to pull Tang Mo out through him. No one was lazy and they used all their strength to pull Tang Mo out. After all, the crystal coffin was too attractive to them. They were willing to take any risks. In the hall, there were a few who didn't help. Ningyu knew how terrifying the crystal coffin was. Moreover, the warrior in black was in the crystal coffin, so they didn't help. Hu Wentian and the 5 nine-tailed foxes saw that Ningyu didn't help, so they didn't help. It was understandable that Ningyu and Hu Wentian didn't help because they knew the warrior in black was in the crystal coffin. Chapter 1676. Chapter 1676. Chapter 1676. Swallow it all up. He is indeed a formidable opponent. Seeing the 100-armed devil and the stout old man standing there calmly, Ningyu's expression turned grave. The fact that the 100-armed devil and the middle phase heavenly sovereign realm could come here with their cultivation at the late phase and middle phase heavenly sovereign realm proved how terrifying they were. Furthermore, the two of them were in the demon spirit realm, so they definitely had their own trump cards. Once they were allowed to use their trump cards, the consequences would be unimaginable. Thinking of this, Ningyu secretly contacted Ninglu and said in a deep voice, "If you suddenly attack, how confident are you that you can subdue the two of them?" "I have no confidence at all." Ninglu shook his head and said, "Don't underestimate them just because their cultivation levels aren't high. Let me tell you, there's an energy fluctuation within their bodies that makes my heart palpitate." Energy fluctuation? Ningyu's mind flickered, and he hastily unleashed his perception, carefully probing the 100-armed devil and the stout old man. Luckily, the 100-armed devil and the short and fat old man had placed most of their attention on Di Feng and the others. Otherwise, It would have been hard for them not to notice Ningyu's detection. After a while, withdrawing his perception, Ningyu's expression became extremely grave. Ninglu was right. Within the bodies of the 100-armed devil and the stout old man, there was indeed an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation. If not for Ninglu's reminder, he really wouldn't have discovered it. It could be said that the energy fluctuations within the bodies of the 100-armed devil and the short and fat old man were comparable to the energy fluctuations of a half-saint realm expert. What should I do? Ningyu's eyes turned as he quickly thought of a countermeasure. Even though Di Feng, Jiao Zhengde, and the rest had suffered from the backlash from the crystal coffin, the remaining 100-armed devil and the short and fat old man had no way to deal with them. After all, the 100-armed devil and the stout old man were the most dangerous existences in the hall. We must stop them from releasing the energy in their bodies. Ningyu quietly took out the jade bottle and held it tightly in his hand. There were 3 drops of true dragon blood in the jade bottle. Each drop could allow him to temporarily raise his cultivation by a large level. Right now, Ningyu's cultivation was at the 5th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. According to Ningyu's estimations, if he consumed a drop of the true dragon's blood, his cultivation would rise to the middle phase Heavenly Sovereign Realm. When he was at the 5th grade Earth Sovereign Realm, Ningyu wasn't confident in stopping the 100-armed devil and the elder from releasing the energy within their bodies. But as long as his cultivation reached the middle phase Heavenly Sovereign Realm, Ningyu was confident in stopping the 100-armed devil and the elder. Besides, Ningyu had already made up his mind. If 1 drop of true dragon blood wasn't enough, he swallowed 2 drops. If 2 drops didn't work, he would swallow 3. 3 drops of true dragon blood could even allow Ningyu to raise his cultivation to the half-saint realm. Of course, devouring the blood of a true dragon was easier said than done. With the current strength of Ningyu's body, there was a high possibility that he would reach the critical point if he swallowed a drop of true dragon blood. However, in order to stop the 100-armed devil and the elder, Ningyu decided to take the risk. I'll help you one last time. However, just as Ningyu was thinking about how to launch a sneak attack on the 100-armed devil and the elder, a vigorous voice suddenly came from the space crack. Senior. The sudden voice made Ningyu's heart skip a beat. He quickly shifted his gaze to the space crack. Ningyu was dumbfounded by what he saw. An even more terrifying devouring force suddenly burst out from the rift. Originally, half of Tang Mo's body was already in the crack. Now that the devouring power exploded again, 2/3 of Tang Mo's body was in the crack. Tang Mo's body being in the crack was secondary. Most importantly, the crack was shrinking rapidly. Di Feng and Jiao Zhengde, who were behind, were shocked to find that they couldn't escape. The devouring power that came from the crack was extremely terrifying. All of them felt as though their palms were nailed and they couldn't pull them back. D***MNit. Tang Jiyu, what the F***ck are you doing? Hurry up and let go. If not, all of us will die. Let go my **s. In my opinion, it's more practical to chop off Tang Mo's legs. Yes. Chop off Tang Mo's legs. Then, we can escape. In the face of danger, everyone suggested ideas. However, everyone's attention was focused on Tang Mo. All of you shut up. Tang Mo is my brother. No matter what, I won't give up on my brother. Tang Jiyu clenched his teeth and said coldly, TSK. As Tang Gu's cold voice rang out, a berserk devouring force once again emerged from the crack. Under the influence of the devouring power, everyone, with Tang Jiyu as the leader, felt the energy in their bodies decreasing rapidly. The speed at which their vitality was decreasing made everyone's heart palpitate. I see. Ningyu nodded his head slightly as he saw Di Feng and the rest being troubled by the decreasing vitality in their bodies. He understood what the black-shirted warrior meant. The black-shirted warrior meant to help him one last time. He meant to use the crystal coffin to absorb all the vitality in Di Feng and the rest. In that case, Di Feng and the others would be lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They would be at his mercy. Stupid. Tang Jiyu isn't willing to sacrifice Tang Mo. You can chop off the legs of the person in front. The 100-armed devil rolled his eyes and said sinisterly, It's better to rely on yourself than on others. Only by relying on yourself can you live an exciting life. The Hundred-Armed Devil's plan was vicious. On one hand, the Hundred-Armed Devil wanted to get rid of Di Feng and Gao Zhengde. On the other hand, the Hundred-Armed Devil didn't want them to be devoured by the devouring power from the crystal coffin. The Hundred-Armed Devil wanted to devour Di Feng and the rest personally. To be honest, the Hundred-Armed Devil wasn't afraid of Ningyu and the rest. He was confident that after Di Feng and the rest lost their fighting power, he would become the absolute overlord in the hall. Great plan. The Hundred-Armed Devil's words gave Di Feng and the rest hope. All of you stop. Let me chop off Tang Gu's legs. Di Feng turned his head and stared at Gao Zhengde and the rest. Then, he mobilized all the vitality in his body and transformed it into a sword aura that slashed at Tang Gu's legs. Gao Zhengde and the rest quietened down when Di Feng turned his head. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one wanted to chop off the legs of the person in front of them. After all, their legs were being eyed by the person behind them. Fat. The ideal was plump but the reality was harsh. Even though Di Feng mobilized all the vitality in his body, it was all for naught. Before the sword aura could touch Tang Gu's legs, it was swallowed by the devouring power that exploded from the crack. Oh no, we're doomed. Di Feng looked at everything that was happening in front of him blankly. In an instant, he looked 10 years older. Fight. Di Feng's failure didn't destroy Gao Zhengde and the rest's hope. Instead, it made them even more determined. Everyone, including Gao Zhengde, mobilized the vitality in their body and transformed it into sword aura that slashed at the legs of the warrior in front of them. Chapter 1677. True Dragon Blood Kai Kai. The results were always shockingly consistent. Gao Zhengde and company tried to circulate the essence energy in their bodies but failed as well. All of it was devoured by the devouring power that erupted from the rift. Bang! Once everyone's yuan qi had been devoured, the spatial crack closed up in an instant. Thump! The moment the spatial crack closed, the pull between the group and the cultivators in front instantly vanished, causing them to fall heavily to the ground. Go! Seeing Di Feng and Gao Zhengde fall down, the Hundred-Armed Devil and the short, fat old man exchanged a glance. Then, they dashed towards Di Feng and Gao Zhengde from two directions. Whoosh! Whoosh! Hundred-Armed Ghost Demon and the short and fat old man moved forward at full speed. They wanted to take control of Emperor Feng and the rest before Ningyu could react. Hu Wentian, bring 5 nine-tailed demonic foxes to stop the Hundred-Armed Devil. Leave the stout old man to us. Ningyu wasn't as clueless as the Hundred-Armed Devil thought. On the contrary, Ningyu had already prepared a countermeasure. Di Feng, Gao Zhengde and the rest's yuan qi vanished, making Hu Wentian the strongest warrior in the hall. Ningyu was not particularly worried about Hu Wentian leading the 5 nine-tailed demon foxes to deal with the Hundred-Armed Devil. Ningyu planned for him, Ninglu, and the Essence Soul Battle Body to deal with the short and fat elder. As for Zhao Lin, Dark Emperor, Hairy Ball and Ningyu, they were going to control Di Feng and the rest. This arrangement was the best way to deal with it. It won't be that easy to stop me, 100 Hands Devil. Hu Wentian was the first to clash with the Hundred-Armed Devil. This time, the Hundred-Armed Devil finally didn't hold back. She waved her hands repeatedly, and in a split second, hundreds of illusory palms appeared in front of her, all of which shot toward Hu Wentian. The reason why the 100 Hands Demon was called the 100 Hands Demon was because of her 100 Hands Demon. 100 Hands Devil transformation was the 100-handed devil's famous technique. It was said that the 100 Hands Demon had once used this move to kill a pinnacle heavenly sovereign, and now, the 100-armed ghost demon had actually managed to block the attacks of Hu Wentian and the 5 nine-tailed demon foxes. It was indeed amazing. However, Ningyu didn't have the time to marvel at the 100-armed devil's strength, because the short and stout old man's aura suddenly skyrocketed in an instant. In just a few seconds, the old man's aura had risen from the middle phase heavenly sovereign realm to the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. Bang! As a muffled sound rang out from within his body, the short and fat old man seemed to have broken through some kind of limit. His aura was actually still growing. Everyone, let's attack together. We can't let the old man's aura increase to the half-step saint realm. Ningyu's eyes narrowed when he sensed the short and fat old man's aura. He immediately took out a drop of true dragon blood and swallowed it. Rumble. The instant explosive power brought about by true dragon blood was something that no medicinal pill could compare to. In an instant, Ningyu's aura rose from the 5th grade Earth Sovereign Realm to the Heavenly Supreme Realm, and it continued to rise. Late Phase Heavenly Supreme Realm. Only when Ningyu's aura rose to the late phase Heavenly Supreme Realm did the terrifying amplification brought by the true dragon blood stop. Short and fat old man, today is the anniversary of your death. The boundless energy fluctuations in his body filled Ningyu with power. Yuan Qi surged under his feet. Raising his speed to the limit, Ningyu arrived in front of the short and fat old man in the blink of an eye. His fist carried a violent Yuan Qi gust of wind, fiercely slamming into the short and fat old man's cheek. Child's play. Looking at Ningyu, who was constantly charging at him, the short and stout old man did not take it to heart. In his opinion, even if Ningyu's aura rose to the late phase Heavenly Supreme Realm, it still wouldn't pose a threat to him. After all, he had detonated the energy in his body. Although the energy hadn't been completely absorbed, his cultivation had already reached the peak Heavenly Supreme Realm and was infinitely close to the half-saint realm. Therefore, the short and fat old man didn't fear Ningyu. Yin-yang palm. The short and stout old man's actions were completely seen by Ningyu. He saw Ningyu let out a low roar and his right fist turned into a palm, which fiercely collided with the short and fat old man's palm. Pa. The two palms collided. A muffled sound rang out, and then the two figures rapidly retreated. How is this possible? In the process of retreating, the short and fat old man shook his slightly swollen palm with an exaggerated expression of shock on his face. In this exchange, he and Ningyu were evenly matched. The short and fat old man couldn't believe this result. He was a powerhouse that was infinitely close to the half-saint realm, but he was actually evenly matched with a late-stage Heavenly Supreme Realm cultivator. If this matter were to spread, where would he put his face? Brat, you can actually block 1/10 of my strength. In order to conceal the fact that he was evenly matched with Ningyu, the short and fat old man roared and charged out again. You won't be so lucky next. I've decided to use 2/10 of my strength to kill you, noisy. Ningyu said coldly. Through the previous exchange, Ningyu basically determined the short and fat old man's strength. In a head-on confrontation, he indeed wasn't a match for the short and fat old man. However, it would also be extremely difficult for the old man to kill him in his current state. In fact, it was practically impossible for him to do so. You two go and help Hu Wentian. Leave the short and fat old man to me. Ningyu decided that he would deal with the short and fat old man, while Ninglu and the Yuanshan battle physique went to help Hu Wentian. The short and fat old man had already activated the energy in his body, so it was too late to stop him now. But the 100-armed devil was different. The 100-armed devil had relied entirely on his own strength to fight evenly with Hu Wentian. Ningyu let Ninglu and the Yuanshan battle physique help Hu Wentian because he was afraid that the 100-armed devil would activate the energy in his body again. Swish. Ninglu and the Yuanshan battle physique knew that they wouldn't be of much help even if they stayed. They immediately turned around and charged at the 100-armed devil. Black Dragon Sword. Seeing Ninglu and the Yuanshan battle physique charge at the 100-armed devil, Ningyu shook his wrist and took out the Black Dragon Sword. Ningyu didn't dare to be careless when dealing with the short and fat old man in his peak state. The short and fat old man's current cultivation level was infinitely close to half-sage. As long as Ningyu was slightly distracted, the short and fat old man would definitely seize the opportunity to kill him cruelly. Black Dragon Sword Chi. Ningyu injected the essence energy in his body into the Black Dragon Sword and instantly slashed out a terrifying sword beam. Kai. Kai. The friction between the sword beam and the air produced a sizzling sound. Whoosh. Not long after the sword beam flew out, Ningyu brandished the Black Dragon Sword again. This time, it wasn't a sword beam that flew out of the Black Dragon Sword. Instead, it was a gigantic black dragon phantom. The five-clawed black dragon danced in midair before opening its mouth and spewing out flames. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.